Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Jeff Law.
I'm sorry. Thought I heard someone say something. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February 2026 FMDiSC meeting. I'm Bob Shockey, and I'm your host for today's meeting. Uh, as
Recording.
you, as you may have noticed, AI is taking over much of the tech conversation these days, and for good reason. Today's meeting is no different, as we have two solid presentations that deal with the subject. I'm going to give them to you in reverse order here. After the break today, we'll have Louis de Parra from Claris. He'll be filling us in on the latest AI-related innovation in FileMaker, MCP, which brings more advanced natural language tools to FileMaker. Before that, we'll have Chris Moyer's installment of his Tech News Roundup, which I'm happy to regard as one of the cornerstones of our FMDiSC meetings. But first, we'll be kicking things off with an informal conversation between two well-known personalities in the Claris FileMaker community, the FMDiSC board's own Matt Navarre and Productive Computing's Marc Larochelle. They'll be discussing what it takes to teach FileMaker in the age of AI. Amidst all of this, we will have a break with breakout rooms and some time to socialize and a bit of time for announcements. If anyone would like to make an announcement to the group, please message me privately and I'll see if I can give you some time. We ask that during the presentations, you mute your microphone unless you're commenting or asking a question, so background noises don't disturb us. Please check in now. Please check now that you are muted, even if you think you are. It always seems like there's someone who thinks they're muted and then turns out that they're contributing to the meeting in a way that they don't mean to. So now, please allow me to introduce Matt and Marc on the topic of the Trainer's Challenge in teaching FileMaker in the context of AI.
Hello. Actually, Mark and I decided we are going to change the topic and we're going to talk about Nord keyboard programming. So,
Not exactly.
not exactly. I guess we'll stick to the original.
Right.
So, the whole impetus to this discussion was as a trainer, because that's kind of what I do in my latest iteration of work, is just do FileMaker training one-on-one and in classes. I don't do videos because there's no possible way you're going to make a video as good as Mark can do. Um,
I don't know about that.
so, well, I do. I get to say it.
Well, thanks.
So I thought a lot about because I've watched all your videos for AI just to make sure I'm getting all those bases covered. And um, it strikes me how much your life must have changed to keep on top of all that, knowing kind of what I have had to do to keep on top of it and how much fun that's been. But I'm just, I guess, really kind of a lot of the conversation is going to be around how that change has been to your life. Um, yeah. Was I
Well,
right to think that it's a huge change?
it was a huge change, and it took it did take a schedule change at work in order to do it as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and this really happened before AI, but it started happening uh, pretty much when the university came online, which was 2017. Productive Computing University came online. It was me and another trainer, and we just dug in. And at that time, we created that university to make certification training for anticipation for what Claris had as the previous certification test, which was a difficult thing to take and pass. So we had additional supplemental training to do that, and that's what started that. So that evolved over time. And it became clear to us that in order to, like you said, stay on top of things, learn the tech, and then teach the tech, it was going to require a commitment. So Keith and I sat down. Keith, my brother, Keith LaRochelle, co-owner of the company, said, "Well, let's carve out, a minimum of 20 hours a week dedicated for this, which then slowly turned into 40 hours plus, just for content creation slash training. And he will assume the responsibilities of the company in large part. Yes, I'm still there strategically, but I don't do really any of the day to day. So my new job at work is content creator slash trainer. And it took, so that was the first thing that had to happen is carving out the time. Second thing that had to happen, which happened naturally, which was for whatever reason, I get totally blown away with what AI could do. And just, I get absolutely fascinated with it to the point where it was just part of me. It wasn't even something I was trying to do. I just got charmed by it. Um, it seduced me in a way that I never thought it would. So
You mean doing AI in your own life? This is kind of, I have some questions to ask in order, but do you mean like AI in your own life as things to make your life better, or AI in terms of adding FileMaker? I guess there's kind of three areas. um, AI in your own life, AI as a tool to develop and to learn and to use FileMaker, or AI in the applications that are customer facing. Those are kind of the three areas, I think.
I would say the first two mostly, and most recently the last. So AI in my life, starting from talking with ChatGPT all the way to, oh, how can this help me as a developer? All the way to how can we integrate AI with FileMaker?
Hmm.
And then, Claris coming along and doing their thing at the same time. It was sort of a natural mesh up of all those disciplines. I mean, I don't know how many prompts I've done at this point, but it must be in the tens of thousands because I use it all the time for all kinds of things. And part of it is to experiment to see, okay, if I threw this at it, what would happen? If I throw that at it, what will happen? And just massive amounts of experimentation and tinkering.
You mean
Um,
just like in ChatGPT as opposed to FileMaker, or both?
yeah, I always start with ChatGPT because that's the foundation. Well, I shouldn't say ChatGPT in general because I do use the other models from other providers, but whatever you want to end up doing in FileMaker, you can pretty much prototype independent of that using ChatGPT. So
Right.
it
Yeah, I
just
think it's
makes
quite different. Actually, I'd love
yeah,
to get into that when we get into it,
yeah.
but
It is to a certain extent, but it's also, you're talking to the same model. You're just talking to it in a different way when it comes to FileMaker.
yeah,
It's
you're
in
sending a
FileMaker
huge amount of data, and you're
potentially.
getting a one shot back.
Hmm.
So you have a bunch of context and a bunch of data, and you have these guardrails, and you're getting a very specific response back, hopefully, um, which is
Right.
very fundamentally different than ChatGPT, where it's very broad and wide, and I
Yeah.
think.
Well, I think a lot of that comes down to the data you send and the prompt you create and the model you use.
Hmm.
So yeah, I tend to agree with you. It's funny because the way to look at this is a number of ways. On the one hand, when you're working with ChatGPT, it's got built-in memory for you. So it memorizes the entire conversation from the top to the
Hmm.
bottom. In general, when you make a simple request to FileMaker using, let's say, generate response from model, you don't necessarily tend to think about what memory or what prefix you need to send it. Sometimes you're just sending it the one prompt, the data in
Hmm.
the one prompt. So it doesn't have as much context as a normal chat conversation would using ChatGPT. Of course, there's a checkbox that you can check to say, okay, take all the previous content and send it along with it. Oftentimes you don't need that depending on what it is. But so yeah, I get what you're saying, but if you want to, well, let me give you a quick example. Let's just take a document like a PDF. You throw that in ChatGPT and you ask questions about it.
Your
Well,
video
if you,
today.
what's that?
That's your video that you dropped today,
Well,
which
yeah,
was
yeah. I
great, by
was.
the way.
Oh, thanks. Oh, that was something that it was part of the Claris Academy, actually. So that video was just taking the Claris Academy course lesson and then putting it on YouTube and promoting it in that way. But yeah, it's so let's say you did all that in ChatGPT, you can almost imitate that pound for pound in FileMaker. So okay, let's take FileMaker, take that same PDF, ask the same exact prompt, you'll get likely a similar answer as long as you're using the same model. So that's what I mean by prototyping in
Hmm.
ChatGPT.
Definitely.
But it goes so much further than that. I find, and now this may be exposing a little bit of too much geekiness, but I find that I tend to use those conversational, the live voice when I'm driving. So just throw that on, start
Hmm.
asking it questions, and and I know you've done this too, Matt. I think you've talked about it in different podcasts with Chris and all that. But that conversation that you have with it is a good way to understand exactly what it's thinking, how to ask it a certain thing, how to hone in on it, and you sort of train yourself on being a good prompt engineer by talking
Hmm.
to GPT all the time. And it doesn't
Yep.
have to be GPT. It could be Gemini. It could be Claude.
Right.
Although
When we say ChatGPT, we're talking about the whole
generic,
space of LLMs, and
big,
pick your choice. It's just like
right?
it's
Yeah,
like a Kleenex, It's the brand
exactly,
name of the
exactly. Brand
generic.
name, right? Right.
Yeah, Band-Aids. They don't call them Band-Aids in Europe. They call them plasters, which I
Oh,
think is weird. But anyway,
interesting.
and there is no Band-Aid brand anywhere over here that I've seen.
Mm.
So yeah, GPT stand in. So kind of getting back to what I was super curious about is, I mean, you made it really clear that you've changed your life from a bunch of from what you say 2017 when you started the
Yeah.
university.
2017,
Um,
2018 is when things started really changing for me personally.
so in the last 2 years, how much of your time has shifted to just AI FileMaker stuff, really kind of taking away from the core
Yeah.
FileMaker or video stuff?
I
That's kind of the crux of what I'm really curious about.
I think it's 50 to 60% of my time now is spent just AI related research, training, experimentation. At least, maybe
Yep.
more, maybe more. You know,
Yeah.
my managers asked me, "Are we going a little too overboard on AI? Maybe we ought to, get back to the fundamentals of FileMaker and not just go all hog wild on AI." And kind of
Yep.
thought about that for a second. Yeah, because adoption is one of those things that has been the biggest surprise for me, which I'd like to
How
talk
slow it
about
is.
talk about in a second. Before I do, I just want to close the one last other thing that changed in my life is I told GPT to remind me if 4 a.m. every day, send me an email of these providers and any new news that has happened with those providers. So what I end up doing is when I first wake up, I have a little iPad mini. I get on there and I read that post, and then I see, okay, what's new in the industry in terms of what models are
Hmm.
going to be released, what changes have happened. So it's sort of, and I enjoy that. It's one of my best times of the day is like just reading about the news related to this because I know it's going to, I'm getting get excited when a new model comes out so I can put it through its paces and tinker around with it for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
That's
that's
definitely
that's
fun.
another big thing that changed my schedule.
So we touched briefly on the topic of things into production. I definitely want to talk about that more. I would ask that for everybody who's listening, just throw a little thing in chat if you have something in production, or maybe just like how many things you have in production, or if they're small or large or whatever. Not a big long thing, but I'm just really curious because when I've taken this poll before, even among large Claris partners, several of the partners have nothing in production for their clients yet, which is I don't know. I'm not sure how to think of it. It's not good, that's for sure. Um, and not to take away too much from the direction, but that is the whole thing I'm trying to change with my approach to training these days is to get small little things that I call like buttonize it into databases so you can in a matter of an hour or two or three or five, you can put something small and useful into production. Uh, and to get that working, I think I probably spend 70 or 80% of my time lately testing, researching, playing with FileMaker AI stuff. And almost all of the stuff that I'm doing is to build things that are client facing. And not dwell too much, even though I certainly use a lot of it for my own internal development. I don't know how you could do a curl command or some of the complex JSON stuff to call the AI APIs without using AI to understand the documentation. It saves a lot of time.
Oh, that's so
Um,
true. Yeah. Use AI to help you learn about AI.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yep,
and also for
absolutely.
writing prompts, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yep.
So when you're doing that AI development in FileMaker, there's a whole bunch of round trips, you know. It's like here's the prompt I'm using, or here's my system prompt, here's my user prompt, uh, and um here's the result that I get back, but this is what I want. Tell me how to write my prompt differently, or tell me what data you want differently, something like that.
Right.
Um,
And it's
uh,
evolving too. 3 years ago, if you were to ask about AI integration, it would be a very different picture, or a very different scene. So the tools that Claris has built for us has made it a lot easier. That, along with better models than ever before, that
mhm.
along with just everything is sort of evolving at the same time. It's sort of like the ingredients for the food is getting better. The chefs are getting better at cooking the food. The kitchens are getting more advanced, and all of
Mhm.
that's coming together to prepare the better meal. Easier to prepare, better tasting, less expensive.
Yeah. I
So,
still just go for the top ramen, but whatever.
so, so it has been an interesting evolution, but also for the people on the call, and some haven't really even started yet, and maybe some are ducking, covering, and don't and just want to avoid it altogether and say, okay, look, I'm 3 years from retirement. I don't even.
It might even be an okay approach.
Mhm.
There's a lot of places, there's a lot of customers who it just doesn't have any application for how they use FileMaker. So
Right, right.
yeah.
I mean, you remember when got the first PHP API within FileMaker server, And there were a great many people that adopted that, embraced it, and then learned that technology and became pseudo programmers, web programmers. And
Hmm.
then there were the rest of us that said, I'm never going to learn PHP. I don't want to be a web programmer. And that's the end of it.
Hmm.
And we all survived, and we all found our way in our specialty. So AI could be one of those situations where, look, if you don't jump on the bandwagon, you're not going to lose everything. But I think of all the technologies that have been introduced, this is one of the most exciting. And because it's not just a new tech, it's a new platform. It's an entire platform. It's an ecosphere of development.
Hmm.
And if you were to go right now and look at OpenAI's documentation, you would see so many different tools and features and attributes. It's almost as large as Amazon Web Services. I mean, it's a massive scale of what you can do with AI, the different types of AI, the different tools to use. So it can be overwhelming and intimidating, but it's so much more
Yeah.
than just, let's say, a PHP technology. It's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, that's true. That leads to my second question, like which is what areas of AI, I guess specifically in terms of integrating with FileMaker, are you most excited about? You think they have the most legs, and specifically again in FileMaker world, generative report summarization, HTML generation, semantic search, or other things that are beyond that.
Right. So me personally, I'm interested in very similar to what you are interested in. What we're finding is that customers are really slow to adopt the concept of AI. Every customer has heard of AI. Every customer has heard of ChatGPT. Almost none of the
Hmm.
customers know how or why they would want to use it in their system. I mean, that's
Hmm.
just for the most part. You ask one customer, and
Hmm.
that's the kind of answer you're going to get. So for me personally, I like kind of what you're doing. Like, where are the small wins? For example, could I use AI to help me build a proposal? Okay, sure. Yeah, we could take
No.
the aspects of this, your tone of talk, yeah, that kind of thing, and it can
That's
get you,
that's
let's
what I
say,
would call
80, ninety
big, though.
percent there. What's that?
I don't think that's a small win. I think that's a bigger win, depending upon how you're
Big
looking at
win.
it.
Right,
More stuff,
right.
and also it's that's a harder one to do really well because there's a lot of other moving parts. So
But you
I
could
wouldn't call
graduate
that
to
like
it.
a, yeah,
Yeah.
you could. I would get a toe in the door with something much smaller. But one of the things I've been trying to do is to not let customers tell me what they want from AI, but to tell them, like to get in front of them, to look at their system and say,
Yeah.
you probably haven't thought of it, but this right here, I can copy and paste some stuff, and this is going to, in a couple of hours, you'll be able to do something really cool that wasn't even possible before.
Right. I give you another
And
example. I think that
yeah, yeah,
fits
give it
it
to me.
if you want. There's a customer who manages professional speakers. They're sort of a coordinator of all these professional speakers that speak all over the country.
Hmm.
And she said one of their pains is that when we adopt a new customer, a new company that they want to prospect, someone has to go to the website and figure out all what this company does, what are their training opportunities, what are their meetings they normally have, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, well, what if we just give you an email address or a domain, put that in there, and then have AI go do the search on the website and fill all that in? She saw it and she was like blown away. Okay, where do I sign up? It was so easy for her to understand how that could help her and how much that would save 10 minutes for every new company they enter.
But she
Just
wasn't asking for it. She
no,
didn't
that's
know.
correct. She wasn't
Yeah.
asking for it. I had to show her 1st.
Yeah, so I think historically, I would summarize it this way. Historically, customers have known their pain points to a large degree, and we've been able to solve their pain points as FileMaker developers. They do not know their pain points. They do not know at this point the kind of things that it can do for them in their database because they're so, I don't know, they're so different. I do free classes now every week. I did one on using a couple different forms of AI to catch and prevent duplicate record entry. And in a couple of hours, I put something together that's so shockingly better than all the thousands of hours I've spent on search and deduplication in my whole career.
Right.
And by combining generative AI and I don't know, you can come to the class and I'll teach it. I'll show you how it works. But basically, it's combining generative AI and semantic search in a way that's not out of the box and with a simple thing. The quality of the results are just shockingly good to find a duplicate company, person, address, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
anyway,
AI is great at finding needles in a haystack, as an example.
yeah. Well,
And
like semantic search out of the box isn't very good. Like if you use perform semantic find, it just isn't. uh, it's just not very good, right? It gets you to a certain point, but if you embed something differently, and then you actually do a generative AI on your prompt before you embed it. So you take your prompt and embed it, and you take your data and you embed it, and you enrich that. The results you get from a semantic search are night and day different. Um,
Right.
and that's not obvious.
Yeah.
I had a crazy idea to try it, and I did a bunch of experiments with it, and it worked out perfectly. So, but
Right.
those are the kind of things that, a customer would never come to you and say, hey, this duplicate record we've had, we have a problem with duplicate records. They're not going to think AI can actually do anything about it. So anyway,
Right. That's a good, but it took someone like you to curate it. And that's the hard part. And that kind of brings you to another topic of, well, when AI first came out and people realized how powerful it was, the first thing they said, well, you're a developer? Well, you're the first to go. And I
yeah.
absolutely disagree with that. I think you're going to be needed for a long, long time
In
because you need,
FileMaker, but
yeah,
I mean, it
especially in
depends upon the
FileMaker.
kind of development we do, right?
Yeah.
If we're a development, if we're a JavaScript developer, low on the totem pole at a large company,
Yeah.
that
Your
job's
job will
been
be
replaced.
changing rather quickly.
Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah.
But I think it's
So
just we're all carpenters and we've been given the power tools. So now we can use
yeah,
these
yeah,
power tools.
good way to put it. So like more specifically, what kind of forms of AI and methods and features and things like that do you think are going to be big in the FileMaker platform in a year?
Well, I think the things that'll be the biggest probably haven't been created yet. And it
Hmm.
would be nice to see where we could, dial up a script, just say, okay, this is what I want this script to do. Here's my database. This is the script I want to
Yeah.
create. Do it. And then boom, there's a 25
God,
line
it
script.
would be amazing if we had Christian and Rick Kalman on the call, because
Yeah,
those are the
true.
two people who actually can like do something about that.
Right.
Actually, and are I know Christian is.
I'm sure it's been
Um,
talked about.
oh no, he's actually got there's some really cool features of the MES plugin directly aimed at that have been really cool. And I know there's some technological challenges. Christian, I haven't talked to you about it, but we'll definitely compare notes. And it's amazing. So that's coming.
Right.
Because the FileMaker script is just highly structured XML
Right. Right.
that can be copied and pasted, and you
Hmm.
can, theoretically copy and paste the XML into some environment, edit it, ask it to do things, ask it to write code, change it, and then paste it back into FileMaker. It's not directly integrated.
Right.
Could be, should be, but
Right.
at least that would give you the ability to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
And that'll help.
yeah.
But when a customer says, I want AI, or I think
Mhm.
I want AI, or can you incorporate AI? There's so many other questions that have to be asked and so many other decisions that have to be made because you've got to figure out, okay, well, what exactly are you asking for? How are we going to build that? What platform are we going to go with? What model are we going to choose? How many tokens are we going to use? What's the best prompt to get this done? How do we make it as deterministic as possible, but also flexible
Mhm.
enough to work? So there's
Yes.
so many things, and that curation is where I think the FileMaker developer really still needs to be in the seat driving the bus, and
Yeah.
probably will be for years.
The whole uh, area of expertise that a FileMaker developer now needs to have expertise in is context engineering
Yeah.
and understanding the tools and understanding the
Right.
complete focus has changed. Like quite a while ago, I don't know, quite a while, 6 months, I decided to stop writing regular old reports, you know,
Hmm.
because in FileMaker reports, it's great what you can get. And I've written some really complex reports that use JSON and do all this cool things and create a file on disk and, export a PDF from one context and go to another and blah, blah, blah. But what you can get from taking your data, structuring it, I structure it with this thing called JSON LD, ask me later, which is a specific type of a format of JSON. Send that to the model and then and write a really good prompt, get a really good prompt, and the results you get back are shocking. And you hit the nail on the head with make it as deterministic as possible, and that is not easy.
Not easy.
And therein lies the expertise that we as FileMaker developers need to start getting good at. I have a long way to go, as Lexi can attest to in the class that I did yesterday. That I did two two reports, and they were completely different from each other in the results they gave. It's like, okay, this is what happens when you do a class. The
Right.
demo gods.
Right.
So let's see. On the daily, what do you do? What AI do you use? Are you mainly ChatGPT? Are you Claude? What's your day look
So
like
my
after you
my
wake up in
three
the morning
favorite
and look at?
yeah, my first favorite provider is OpenAI, and I'll tell you the reason why I like each one when I go through all three.
Hmm.
And the reason I like that is they're the first to the party. They're the ones that make the most standards in terms of how AI is structured, what the request and response generally look
Mhm.
like. They have the most infrastructure built out for a variety of things. There's almost nothing you can't do with the OpenAI platform. Then probably my second favorite, it's a tie between Gemini from Google and
Mhm.
Claude from Anthropic.
Mhm.
And the reason Gemini has really come a long way. At first, they were like, "Okay, give me a break. You guys are so far behind." And now, wow, they're some of the fastest. It's amazing what Gemini can do, and I think we're going to see a lot more from that, especially now Apple's in bed with them and things like that.
Yeah.
And then Claude, I like for the actual app, the desktop app for Claude,
Hmm.
because I think it's very powerful. I just
Yeah.
did
And Claude
a
Code in there.
blog. What's that?
And Claude Code, the code side of
Oh
it.
yeah, Claude Code
Yeah.
and all the things that FileMaker's talking about. Yesterday's webinar with Louis. So there's just that's an exciting piece of software, especially for developers. So so I try to use all three, but I generally stay mostly with OpenAI, and
Mhm.
the tool I go to first is ChatGPT through OpenAI
Yeah.
from a developer standpoint.
I
The
think I
models
meant.
that I adopt in FileMaker are mostly OpenAI.
Yeah. That's kind of what I do. I don't think I was necessarily talking about which platforms you use, but like how in your life how you use it.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, right. Okay. So personally and professionally. So on a personal level, I created this thing using FileMaker where it scans all my receipts. So I'm one of those guys that has always scanned my receipts and always kind of stored them. One of those, just a way to manage money, I
I've read
guess.
about you guys in the
Yeah,
psychology textbook.
exactly. Exactly. Well, it's great to refer to an old expense like what did I pay for that? Or where did we buy something? Blah, blah, blah. It's like
Mm.
a diary of expenses. So yeah, that's one little pet project that I've done, and that keeps evolving with each new iteration. And now I've got it where it's just totally automated. Just scan it from FileMaker Go, and then on the desktop, it does everything. Another way we use AI a lot is with our translation of our courses.
Mm.
So our courses are translated into 13 languages at Productive Computing University. So what we do is I take the original video and then that uploads to OpenAI, which translates it to English and then returns an SRT file, which is like a video format file, gives you the chapter and
My
what
cat's
what
making
was said and
appearance.
when. And then I send another command to OpenAI, but I do that in a queued thing. I'm using the responses endpoint, which
Mm-hmm.
means you don't have to wait for the results. You can queue it all up. Boom, 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 boom. So I queue 13 languages. And then I have FileMaker check for those in a loop. And then they all come in at the same time. So it processes in parallel those languages. So
That's
all the
cool.
SRTs come back, and then I just upload it. And now I've just translated a lesson in a minute and a half into 13 languages that previous to that was very manual.
Hmm.
You had to go to Google Translate and sort of one by one ham and egg and put all those pieces together
Yeah.
individually.
And of course, a year from now, you'll be able to do that with the video, and it'll actually make your lips move correctly with the new
Exactly.
language too.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
getting close on that too, by the
Yeah.
way. I've been researching that. So
Yeah.
dubbing, like YouTube has adopted dubbing now. So they don't have the lips yet, but that's the next thing they're working on. Where
Yeah. Yeah. Deep fake.
so those are two examples of little projects that I do on a personal level that help me.
Yeah. I also was thinking about like you already mentioned like having conversations in your car. Um, like for me, I don't know, any kind of medical stuff, any life stuff, learning Greek, obviously. I have a
Mm.
channel for pets and like how do I get my cat to stop biting my hand, whatever. Um, it turns out don't let them ever play with your hand ever. I mean, it's not a toy anyway. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
didn't
are
you use
there,
it for like language translation and you were experimenting with all kinds of things
yeah,
about
quite a
language
bit.
and Mhm.
Yeah, and actually in my, I wrote a little thing um, to learn Greek that I would take a word that I'm learning and then use AI to actually conjugate the verb and then give me some sample sentences in Greek to help learn that. So
Right.
it's like you know, flashcards on steroids, really. And then
Right.
also make flashcards track it. Yeah. That's been really helpful. And it's kind of weird. Like, hey, I put a little AI thing together in my own little personal database that I buttonized, or I push a button, it goes and conjugates it, returns the results in JSON, and then creates records in FileMaker. It took a
Right.
couple hours.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Um, and
So
then
many things.
expanded that to some other things that I taught in the class. Um, yeah, so I'm just kind of guessing, like you, like me, like probably a lot of people use it for tons of different things in life, cooking, recipes. Sometimes I feel a little guilty, but
Right.
it's really great.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
You could take a picture of the food on your plate and say, estimate the calories of this, and it'll do that
yeah,
and break it down. And it figures out what it is, and then figures out the quantity, the size,
yeah,
the dimensions, and says, okay, this is what it is.
yeah. I did a
Pretty neat.
calculation. Like, if you have type 2 hypertension and you eat one frozen pizza a week, how much time are you taking off of your life? I didn't do that calculation, but I probably
Yeah, there
really
you go.
should.
Stuff
Um,
like that.
because salt. Uh, let's see. Okay. Um, I talked about two different key areas. Uh, well, actually, there's two key areas I think of AI in FileMaker, right? So using AI to code, learn, test, and use it to basically as a development assistant. I think we kind of
Right.
talked about this a little bit already. And then building AI into databases that benefit users of the systems. What's that balance of time for you? 70/30, 60/40?
I'm going to say it feels like 50-50 for me.
Okay.
50% of my time I'm using it as an assistant to help me write
hmm
something or figure something out. And then 50% I'm actually plugging it into some system somewhere, mostly our own. So,
Anybody else who's on the call who I would love to know your opinion. Like if you heard us talk about that question, and you're like, wow, I'm 90/10 or I'm 100/0 or whatever. This is a good time to chime in and ask a question or throw something in there, so it's not just me and Mark talking. Um, and Tony's putting some good stuff in here. Tony?
Hey, thank you. Yeah, I'll jump in. Interesting conversation. Thanks, everybody. The Matt, I like the way you laid it out in terms of the categories where AI, otherwise known as software, comes into play in the FileMaker platform and the activities around it. I do have a strong opinion on CodeGen, and that's what I dropped into the chat, that it requires context. You can get some of it with AppleScript. I don't know, maybe Christian or FileMaker can do something to facilitate the process of grabbing context for the, go to layout script step needs context. Set fields needs context. If you're going to go gen, you need context. Maybe FileMaker can build in the ability and to grab context.
hmm
The other thing, and I dropped this earlier in the chat, is John Howell turned me on to Grok. I'm not an expert. I've only played with one engine. I'm a little bit behind on some areas, but I was playing around with it today, and I asked it a FileMaker question, and it gave me a big long answer. I am going to look at it. I think anyone who doesn't look at the artificial intelligence, which is often not intelligent, but it's good for a first draft. Um, and the final thing that I'll say that I have experience with is a friend of mine turned me on to Google's product Notebook LM. LM stands for language model. And I do think that it's useful in the FileMaker community for summarizing, what do you call it? YouTube videos. And I'll drop a link. I got to go find it, but I'll drop a link. I was playing around with using Google's Notebook LM to review videos. There's a lot of videos out there.
So,
Not everyone's got time to watch them
Tony,
all.
I have a question for you while you're on.
Yes,
What
yes, sir.
percentage of your time do you build customer-facing solutions with AI?
Um, I'll be honest with you. I have not, the fourth category, which I was trying to avoid, but you asked, so I'll be honest. I have not yet had a customer ask me for, and I know there's valid use
And not
cases, but I have
surprising.
not yet had a
I'm not
customer
surprised.
ask me for that.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. This is the point I was trying to make earlier. We can't wait for customers to ask us about it. We have to figure out a way to tell them.
Um,
I
I
don't know.
try
I'm
to
not sure.
educate
Maybe that's too small.
customers. Well, I'm trying to catch up on like building the FileMaker is awesome platform. Just for the record, there's so much you can do in the platform, and the
Yeah.
customers, are just calling, can you build us this QR code? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I'm pretty much running full. If I was, had slack time, I'd be like, you know, trying to promote this or that. But I don't know, maybe someone else can jump in. And by the way, just for the record, closing thought here, I have seen some beautiful artificial intelligence use cases like for California street signs, for translation, which you guys mentioned. So I know there's stuff out there. It's just not me. Sorry, not doing everything over here.
Is anybody here spend 50% or more of their time integrating AI in customer-facing databases? I'll even say 30% or more of your time doing that. I'm curious. I got all day.
I think that might be a no.
Can we
Dave
see
has-
10%? How about 5%?
Are we going to start a reverse auction? I'm not surprised by that because Tony, you're right. Customers are not asking for it, right? Their boss, I don't know, one of the things I've repeated a bunch of times, our customer's boss who owns the company is telling the people who are our customers, maybe who are the actual workers, that they need AI. But the boss doesn't know what they want. The boss doesn't say, hey, go put this into the database using AI to do it. And then the users also don't know. Their boss is telling them, but they're like, I look at my database and I don't know what would be a good use. I'm not sure how we solve that problem. I would love ideas. I would bet you David has some really good ideas about
Got
it.
to have a round table.
Yeah. That would be a really good roundtable, how to solve it. One of the things I've tried to do is on my own time, spend an hour or two integrating something into a customer system that is AI using just my key. I don't tell them, obviously I'm not going to do anything violating their privacy or anything like that. And then tell them, hey, there's this thing I'm trying. It's a little button. Try it. See if it works for you. Maybe, and then they can see it or not. So they didn't have to pay for it. They didn't have to think about it. They can just try it. And then if it's useful, they can say, hey, look, this thing is AI that solves this cool problem for us. What else can we do? The puppy dog close, I guess, but
Matt,
I think that's a pretty good strategy. I've
it's
thought
not
about
so
that
far.
myself.
Matt,
Yeah.
you were when I said roundtable, I was talking about with the decision maker and
Mm.
the employees.
Okay,
You
so
have
not
to,
a roundtable here, but you mean like a roundtable at the client?
yeah, you got to figure
Oh,
out a way to
okay.
get the employees in with the decision maker, in a way that's not going to derail you from the other things you need to accomplish with the decision maker. That's what I was referring to.
Okay. That's yeah, I love that idea. That's definitely really good. Okay, I
Dave's
don't
had
have
his hand up for a while.
we have pardon?
Dave's had his hand up for a while.
Oh. Uh well, Dave, you can just chip in. You don't got to wait.
Well, I like to.
Being civil.
I don't
One
look at
one
people's hands
thing
up.
one thing that I want to, actually it's really ironic because both Matt and Mark are pioneers in let's build useful uh, micro demos that show an impact immediately with, Mark, I think you did a Claris webinar a couple months ago where you showed a suite of things that I think you guys do in your AI training class. And I
Right.
was just sitting there going, yes, yes, yes. That's how you get a foothold is by showing this little problem just went away. It would have been whatever, 50 hours of programming or impossible without AI. And it can be done relatively simply and make an enormous impact in that smallest use case scenario. So I think, Matt, you did the same thing. I think it was back in December with your session where you're showing really
Mhm.
usable techniques and that have an impact and a business. Like Mark just talked about the research aspect. We do that as well. Point to a website, boom, scrub it, pull anything back, give me a summary in six paragraphs or what have you. That's a relatively easy thing. So I think you guys are on the right path in doing that. Number two, a really interesting thing that we did the other day. Everybody's talking about can it write my code or can it help me create a proposal? We had a customer who was kind of like, man, we're spending a lot of time on this and why is it costing so much and blah, blah, blah. And we said, look, we're building all of this, and this is going to save you time, and this is going to save you money, et cetera. We had to sort of justify our position, right? But we also gave the parameters of the entire project. We did a chat GPT thing and said, hey, this thing costs this much. It has these modules. It does this amount of work. It has this kind of automation. We've spent X amount on interface, this amount on testing, et cetera. And it came back and said, given the scope of the project, your range of testing should be between X and Y. You guys are right in the middle of that. It really validated. It was sort of this uniform validator for what we had been working on and why it was meeting what would be industry standards in terms of cost, time, performance, delivery schedule, and all those things. Really helped us with a customer see sort of this abstracted validation of what we've been doing and feeling better about it. So there's all sorts of creative ways you can use it within your business as well. But in terms of getting the greater population using it, I think the two of you guys are on the right track with really good, easy, digestible demos that make business leaders go, I gotta have that.
How do we get the business leaders to come to the table and to know that?
Stop talking to a bunch of geeks and start talking to business leaders.
All right, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah. Go
Yeah, no,
go talk to Claris right now. I've been banging the drum, the share voice thing from 5 years ago where I was saying we need to start selling to the decision makers. We have to stop trying to make everybody a problem solver. Everybody does not need to be a developer to benefit from the FileMaker platform. There's a lot of decision makers that are at the airport seeing Zoho and Monday.com and all of these competing platforms, and you can have a conversation with them about the value of the FileMaker platform.
I
Get
think
in front of the people who make decisions.
I mean, this is yet another, really versatile and wide-ranging tool in our toolbox. And it's our job to, when appropriate, reach out for that tool and say, hey, maybe this tool will work, and that's when we talk to our customers about it. Just yesterday, it turned out maybe not the perfect use case, but we had to talk it through with them to know that. And so we had a discussion with a client about using, for a very specific application using AI. And it's not out of the question yet, but it was certainly something that was it was a valuable discussion, and so, somebody was saying, well, none of our customers have asked us for that. Well, I don't think it's on them to ask for that. I think it's on you to suggest it when it's appropriate. And so we all have a responsibility to educate ourselves on what it can and can't do and what the possibilities are, which, what it can't do is probably a smaller list than what it can do in a way. I don't know. I mean, and for me, sometimes it means, it means kind of going, well, maybe AI could do that and not really knowing exactly how that might happen yet. But, at least keeping it open is a possibility.
Yeah. Mark, let's get back to you on stuff. Your break is over. So I'm curious about in the courses that you've done, the question I was asking originally was, what's the directional shift you've seen in the community? But kind of where we're going on this conversation, I think maybe I would ask, like, what kind of feedback are you getting? And I see Enzo has his hand up too. What kind of a feedback are you getting from comments on videos and classes and students like that on the areas that are kind of evolving, I would say? Where's the direction going? If you could summarize that.
The responses that we get are similar to what you guys are saying right here in this meeting. It's almost identical. Some people haven't really embraced it. Some people have embraced it a little bit. Most people say, how do I get this in the hands of a customer? How do I convince somebody that they need it? Or maybe the question should be, what does a customer need? And how do we fulfill that need? Which is the same question we've been asking since we've had customers. What is it that is your issue? So that's some of the feedback. The other thing that we get is debating whether it should be privatized or using the regular models. So that's been another point of where a lot of customers are like, well, I don't want any of my data going out there. I don't care, and that's a whole other conversation.
Even though there is
necessarily bring up right now, but that's another
all
debate.
all the providers have a really specific document that says we don't use your data for training, we don't cache your data, it's completely private. They never thought about it for a minute on any other API call they've been doing for the last 10 years.
Right.
But with AI, they have a big concern.
Yeah.
And I think it's not founded in logic, but it doesn't matter because it's real to them. And if it's real to them, it's real.
Yeah. And for other than Google and some of these other bigger companies, it is a new frontier. So they might have been a Microsoft customer for years and years and years, but this thing called OpenAI is, we don't trust them yet, kind of thing.
Yep.
I think that's where a lot of
it's
that
like a new
philosophy
company
comes
that I
from.
haven't heard of. Yeah. Enzo, what do you got? I call Vince Enzo because it's a much cooler name.
Yeah. Thank you. Also connected to Enzo Ferrari, but
that's why I call you that. You kidding me?
So I've been spending a fair bit of time wiring up, exploring, cleaning up data with AI. I wish there was some built-in ways to do that directly in Claris and FileMaker. The other thing I would say is, if any of you have listened to Peter Steinberger, the person responsible for OpenClaw, on some interviews,
that was one of my next topics.
And specifically, when he talks about it, his passion and interest for what he did there was just pursuing curiosity, and that is, I think a lot of us are driven by the curiosity of what this thing can do and how it works, etc. But I would definitely encourage experimentation and curiosity for people who haven't dove into it yet. But I know we use it internally for different systems internally. I know we've built some systems for clients. I don't have the breadth and width of everything that's going on these days at Beeswax, because there's so many people and so many projects. So I don't know specifics or percentages, but for Inspector, something that I have been exploring recently, and I think an important topic in terms of a good way, maybe instead of some of the built-in AI features, another built-in way is to explore the MCP. If any of you have not listened to Louis give that presentation, I think he gave it yesterday.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Or he gave it yesterday or the day before. I can't remember, but
yeah.
And it will open your eyes. I wired it up just to use one script tool with Inspector. And so right from Code Desktop, you can say, look at this script and give me some insights about, any issues or improvements to the code, etc. And it's amazing. It's really, really incredible. And that's just a starting point. There's so many other jumping off points from there in terms of, the opportunities that would be enabled by MCP through a process which, if you can connect it to that endpoint, and you can, be in your car driving, hey, what's the next client I got to go visit? I don't have to open up any system to get that answer. I have an endpoint that through MCP that will fetch that data and reply to me via voice to give me that answer.
I think actually it's going to go well beyond that. So this is one of the next question I have for Mark, and I think will involve, this is going to kind of the last part of the conversation, I think, will be about this, which is directly OpenClaw and MCP. So those are two things that are happening. Does anybody, well, I was going to say, does anybody not know what OpenClaw is? But it is kind of a geeky thing. It's only about a month old, and Vince referred to it. Mark, do you have an OpenClaw bot set up?
No OpenClaw bot. Just reading about it at this point. Maybe you can share your experience with it that you were kind of telling me about.
Yeah,
I'll quickly describe what it is.
Yeah, I'll quickly describe what it is and then talk about kind of what I see it, but I'm sure others can add a lot to it. So it's a free open source code base that you run locally on your computer, and so the information is private, local on your computer, and then it connects to any other type of AI out there, and can do things. So it's not just like, hey, like to use Vince's example, you could say, hey, what's my next client? With OpenClaw, you would be able to do something like, what's my next client? Send them an email and tell them I'm going to be 20 minutes late. and also go make a record in the FileMaker database, or go do this other thing, this other task. Post to, post something to Slack that this is going to happen, and also send a text message. It actually acts for you. It does things as opposed to just tells you things. And what's the coolest thing about it is it configures itself. So once you start your instance, you get a prompt. You basically interact with it, a prompt. And if you say, you know what, I want to add Claude. Here's my Claude API key. Go configure yourself so that I can add Claude to the mix. Now, I think that's insane. And that's one of the things that it does do. Have you tried that, Vince? Do you have an OpenClaw? Oh, you're muted.
I say not yet, but I am planning to experiment with it soon.
Yeah, I have one. It's an extra Mac I have over there. Apparently, people are going crazy buying Mac Minis, standing in line so they can run this. You don't want to run this on your main computer. You don't necessarily want to run it as yourself. Tony, before I get to you, does anybody here have an OpenClaw that they run? Elevator pitch from Sol. Perfect. I'll read it. Well, I guess everybody can read it in chat. Yeah, 24/7 digital employee. It's Jarvis, and another way to really think about it if you're a Marvel Universe fan.
Right.
Tony Stark. Sol, do you have one set up?
I don't, because I have some other things going on in life, but I am anxiously excited about it. I have a computer set up ready for it, and I do intend to use it with local models. I have a GPU specifically set up ready for it, and I also want to set it up connecting to N8N. So yeah, big plans. I'm excited to share that with everybody once it's ready to go. I probably, so you guys know I'm getting married here pretty soon, so I probably won't actually start until after that, which is about a month away. But yeah, very excited about it. And who knows, by the time a month comes around, it's going to probably just evolve so much that it'll be unrecognizable compared to where it's at right now, because it's been changing. I mean, how many names has it had already?
Yeah, 3. And hopefully the last one.
And it's only been around for a couple of weeks, it seems. So yeah,
yeah, January is when it started life, and now it's got I don't know how many millions of downloads. Anyway, it's definitely worth understanding, if not actually running and installing and working. And there's been a lot of technical challenges with it. There's a few points where it like stopped working, I had to reboot it, or use it to try to figure out what's wrong with it, and fix it, because it's very, very early. But what I'm most excited about, and haven't configured yet, is actually adding FileMaker MCP as part of the tools. Absolutely. And be able to say, here's an MCP, go figure out what you can do with it, and have a conversation about all the different things that it can do, and add it to your knowledge base. Oh yeah, I forgot about one other key thing about it is it has permanent memory. It's stored on your computer, memory of everything you've done with all of the models.
So that's one of the things I'm most excited about, because right now the memory is stored as just text files, markdown files, right? Mm-hmm. But people have been talking about pairing it with a backend database, and since we can put FileMaker on there, and FileMaker has, and this is what's so great about FileMaker, it has so many things built in for us, right? It has semantic search already. We can use FileMaker kind of both as kind of a RAG system, a search, tool, a memory for OpenClaw. So that's my intention. I want to see if I can incorporate FileMaker as the memory unit for OpenClaw, because my understanding is that the text files are good, but they get kind of large, and they end up using a lot of your context window, and they get kind of expensive in that sense. So if we can use something that kind of curates that, maybe some kind of semantic search with FileMaker, we can, make it cheaper, maybe make it faster, and keep more data over time. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Mark, these two things that have brought up, OpenClaw, which is, I'd say, bleeding edge, freshly cut with an axe, very, very raw, and much less raw is MCP. Are these things that you think, or I guess when do you think these things, which are sort of fringe but becoming mainstream, are going to be the subject of your work and your videos?
OpenClaw probably not for a while, but I think MCP right around the corner. Because MCP is largely built out now with Claris, so there's something to talk about. There's a button to click and something to see operate. So yeah, that for sure. I think the toughest thing about MCP is customers don't know what questions to ask, and it's very easy for them to ask a question that MCP would just say, I don't even know how to compute that. So I think that is, again, where FileMaker developers come in to hone in and build the guardrails for, okay, here's 10 prompts that I know will work, and that'll get you started. And then from there, you can take it. But sometimes if you leave a customer ask these wide open questions, even to an MCP, it's going to largely come up with probably a lot of unknowns. At least that's my impression of it right now.
Yeah, I think I would maybe take it even further. I would say that having a chat interface with your database, almost every user is going to drive that into a wall immediately.
Right.
And I don't want a text conversation with my database, and I can't imagine any of my customers wanting that. I had a conversation with Todd Geist, and he thinks I'm completely crazy. But the tool that he has, which is great, you should absolutely go check it out. Proof Chat, download it, and there's a free version of it, which gives you this. It gives you like a chat connection with your database, and you can integrate tools. It has a lot of other cool things other than just like chat. And DB Services just came out with one. I haven't played with it.
Right. Matt, I got a burning question for you. At what point do you think the industry will no longer need human trainers?
Oh, I love that
really
question.
A question for the whole group.
I'll tell you, I don't know that it's going to happen ever because I don't feel any accountability to an AI. Right. I feel accountability to a human. Accountable.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a core thing with training. I think from the expertise area, like when I go to learn, actually learning Greek is a good example. I have all the tools to learn Greek. I could use all this other stuff on there to do it. But if I don't have someone looking at me askance down their nose because I didn't do my homework, AI is just never going to be able to make me feel bad about it. But a teacher makes me feel bad about it, or motivates me in a way that's much more human. I don't know when we're going to get to that point. So I think that part of it anyway for training, I don't see changing for a long time. Yeah, that's like the guy at IBM saying, I see a worldwide market for 3, maybe 4 computers back when they were all mainframes. Anyway. Yeah. What do you think on that?
I think that in order to succeed in learning something from AI, you kind of have to be a self-starter and then build your own syllabus in a sense and stick to it. When you take guided training, like the things we do, then people say, okay, I have a beginning and an end. This person's going to walk me through the process. They'll be holding my hand the whole time. So unless you're a self-starter, yeah, you probably still love having a human involved. But, there's a whole heck of a lot you can learn without an actual teacher or without even taking an official course. But you have to kind of really want it. It's a little easier to learn, I think, when it's a structured format with A to Z. And if you learn it in this order, you'll learn it the best way kind of thing.
I require students who take my champion class to actually use AI in between class sessions.
Right.
And, as ways to check things and then to also understand the kind of comical bad advice they'll get for trying to write FileMaker code.
Right.
And you have to have some expertise to know you're being lied to. So you can't just blindly trust it with any language. It's not a matter of if it's going to make a critical mistake, it's a matter of when.
Right.
So the human part of it still definitely has to be there. Let's see. That's about all I've got. We'll end up 1 minute and 5 seconds early. Right. Any other last parting shots from anyone?
Hey, I'll just pick it up and say, OpenClaw, beware of the security. Jason Calcanis, who is on the This Week in Startup, dropped a link. A venture capitalist guy, a friendly fellow. Also in the All In podcast, he set up a Mac Mini loaded up with RAM, Kiva as a additional tool in there. And he set it up separate with separate accounts, separate,
Mm-hmm.
because the security hole is ginormous.
Absolutely, no
But he's
question.
threatening to buy 20 of them and for his team of 18 or whatever. So be careful out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can have it log on as you with all your social media and all your everything, and it will actually understand it and read it. It has a web search tool as well. It just integrate it in. Um,
It'll take your Bitcoin.
yeah, but it can do that. I mean, it could log onto your bank account, and it could do basically anything. It's like having an employee who just does
Really
stuff.
separate machine
Anything that you
and
do
separate
online.
accounts.
Yeah, separate accounts.
Don't do it.
Yep. So separate machine, separate account. Yeah, that's the way I set mine up. Her name is Claudia, Clawdia, because kind of obvious. All right, so that's it. That's all I got.
Thanks, Matt.
Bob,
Great.
you're the best. Mark, thanks for the awesome conversation.
Yeah, same.
I really enjoyed getting all your feedback on this stuff.
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
learned some new things for sure.
Same.
Thanks to you both. That was a really great discussion. Really enjoyed that, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up is the Tech News Roundup. Chris Moyer is traveling and he's unable to be here, but he actually recorded the Tech News Roundup for us in advance. So I have that recording here. I'm going to share my screen, and you won't even know that Chris isn't here. So um, let me share that. Can everybody see the Tech News Roundup?
Yep.
Say yes.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
All right. Let's tidy my meeting controls here, and I'm going to go ahead and start it running now.
Welcome to February 2026 edition of the Tech News Roundup. Let's jump right into the FileMaker tech beat. Starting off with Devon, the Danish DevOps company. Their product has received what they're terming substantial funding, which is great news for them. For those not familiar, they began life as a master's thesis project back in 2021, looking at how modern development practices can be introduced into a software ecosystem like FileMaker. They plan to use the funding to expand their engineering team and to rebuild the core technology. Next up, MBS plugin version 16 has been released. Christian's presenting shortly after this, so I don't want to steal his thunder, but the new version has, as usual, many new features that Christian will certainly tell you all about. Next up, .com Solutions announced version 11.73 of FM Pro Migrator. It adds bidirectional data transfer capability between FileMaker Pro and MySQL 9.5. Go to fmpromigrator.com to check it out. Switching or broadening our lens a little bit to take a look internationally. As things have gotten chillier between the US and the EU officials are arguing that relying on US hosted services exposed government discussions to foreign laws, such as the 2018 US Cloud Act. That authorizes the US government to access data even when that data is on servers located in the EU. France's Minister Delegate for the Civil Service and State Reform said that France is committed to regaining their digital independence. They cannot risk having their scientific exchanges, sensitive data, and strategic innovations exposed to non-European actors. So France is pushing US tech companies out of the French government. They're moving civil services servants off of Microsoft Teams and Zoom and onto a homegrown video conferencing platform called Visio, not to be confused with Microsoft Visio. Under the new video conferencing plan, the open source Visio will be rolled out across all ministries and state agencies, becoming the default and eventually the exclusive video conferencing tool for French government workers. TikTok. As of this recording last Thursday, TikTok said it had formed a joint venture to keep the video sharing app operating in the US under new American leadership. Adam Presser, who is formerly TikTok's head of operations, is now the CEO of the joint venture. It's led by a consortium of investors, including cloud computing company and database company Oracle, with the Chinese parent company ByteDance retaining a 19.9% stake. In response to new service terms and some new censorship behaviors, the daily average of US users deleting the app has increased nearly 150% over the past 5 days compared with the previous 3 months, according to market intelligence firm Sensor Tower. Several social media posts point to language in the new policy that describes the type of data they can collect. including sensitive information such as racial or ethnic origin, sexual life or sexual orientation, citizenship or immigration status, or even financial information. And over recent days, TikTok users have reported a number of suspicious malfunctions. Controversial videos about ICE, for example, are either remaining permanently under review or being given surprisingly low view metrics. And there are also allegations that it's impossible to post messages containing keywords such as Epstein. Drawing on these denunciations, California's Governor Gavin Newsom has called for a review into the TikTok algorithm to determine whether or not it complies with state law. Let's move on to the gaming industry. The 2026 State of the Industry report from the Game Developers Conference is out. There's a link at the bottom of the screen here. Based on responses from more than 2,300 gaming industry professionals, they found that 33% of respondents in the US were laid off in the past 2 years. Per the report, those at AAA studios were highly likely to have experienced layoffs at their companies. 2/3 of respondents at AAA studios said their companies had layoffs, and 1/3 of people working at indie studios reported the same. Moving on to Maltbot, now called OpenClaw. For those who haven't heard about this very viral AI assistant, OpenClaw, formerly Moltbot, formerly Cloudbot, is an open source and locally hosted personal AI agent designed to act as a 24/7 digital assistant. This is what its logo looks like now. It was created by Austrian developer Peter Steinberger, and unlike chatbots that only answer questions, it directly controls a computer to perform multiple step tasks such as managing calendars, reading emails, checking in for your flight, interacting with applications like Slack or Telegram. It has over 50 integrations and can control your browser and even your system. Super dangerous security-wise if not configured correctly. So, of course, it's gotten viral and tons of people are using the thing. It has been at the center of a viral whirlwind. On GitHub, it now has hundreds of contributors and over 150,000 stars, which is really high. It's one of the fastest growing AI open source projects on the platform to date, and it's in the top 30 all time with that many stars. The name volatility has resulted in reported fake repos, crypto scam. Scammers launched a fake Cloudbot AI token that managed to raise $16 million before it got rug pulled. And there's no perfectly secure setup. The OpenClaw documentation says as much. Cisco calls it an absolute nightmare from a security perspective. The bot's autonomy relies on permissions to run shell commands, read or write files, execute scripts, perform computational tasks on your behalf. And when you give it enough privileges to do all those things, it can expose you and your data to danger if they have been misconfigured or if malware infects your machine. Think of it like a chainsaw. If you don't know what you're doing, you probably shouldn't use it. To be clear, you should never run this on your daily driver machine. If you can't help yourself and must try it out, various VPS providers, virtual private server providers, have set up security hardened configurations that will probably be much safer for you. First off, there's a lot of posts. Here's a map of where some of these things are being used worldwide. So it's all over the world. This was posted on January 26th. By the way, Cloudbot itself, the original name, was released in November of 2025. So this is a very young project. It went viral at the end of January. It became a target for info stealers. And then there's Moltbook, also created by Peter. It bills itself as the front page of the agent internet, so basically Reddit for agents. They're not powerful enough on their own. They should get together and collaborate. And as you can see here, we have a button at the top, I'm a human or I'm an agent. So we humans are allowed to watch and see what's going on amongst themselves. And this is what their posts look like for those of you curious what Reddit for agents would look like and what sort of things they talk about. I like the one in the lower right corner. Some will bless their hearts about us, the humans who work with the agents. This is a story out of Davos, which just happened not too long ago. Heidi put me onto this story, and it's my favorite one. So this guy is Sebastian Heinemann. He's a 31, I believe I pronounced his name right, 31-year-old entrepreneur, founded a startup called Vertigo with a D. He vibe coded some software that runs on his, as you can see, hand-built prototype verification device. It's meant to fraud-proof money transfers. As you can see, his prototype looks a little sketchy. He was at a party at Davos at the Grand Hotel Belvedere, and he set this device down so he could go find the salmon roll and walked away from it. When he came back, the device was gone. Hotel security was waiting to tell him that the police had some questions for him. So he ended up spending 13 hours in custody of the Swiss police. They searched him, handcuffed him, put him in the back of a BMW. The jail was right next to the train station where they brought him. They brought out a fingerprint scanner, and the guy tells him, I want to see if you're an international spy. He asked for his Lunesta pills because he was going to spend the night. He said, I have insomnia. And his jailer said, I can't give it to you because I don't know if it's cyanide. His cell was supplied by spring water. He said the food was phenomenal. They brought it from the hospital, apparently. Chicken lasagna, which he says was amazing. The next morning, they brought in a guy named Chris, a technical expert. He says, come out here and explain your tech. He does his pitch. He says, look, I'm not a very good hardware engineer, but I'm a great user of AI. So he used Cursor to vibe code this thing. He said he did 43,000 agent runs and generated 25 billion tokens to build his prototype. And quoting him, he says, we open my machine. Chris and I go line by line through the code. I don't know the language that the code was written in because it was written in AI. So Chris actually explained the code to me. They come back and say, you're free to go. You can take all your stuff with you, but you're banned from Davos between now and 6 p.m. on Friday. So he went all the way to Davos and ended up in jail. Tis a shame. Next up, a Waymo story. A Waymo robo-taxi struck a child near an elementary school in Santa Monica on January 23rd, according to the company. The child, whose age and identity are not currently public, sustained minor injuries. This happened near a school. The child apparently dashed out from behind a tall SUV, so the Waymo couldn't see him until he entered the roadway. It did a hard braking action from around 17 miles per hour and struck the child while going 6 miles per hour. Waymo itself immediately reported the accident. The pedestrian stood up immediately, walked to the sidewalk. Waymo called 911. The vehicle remained stopped, and the National Highway Transportation Safety admin opened a probe into the problem. The accident occurred within 2 blocks of an elementary school. As a result of this, the California Teamsters call for a suspension of Waymo's operating license. In a similar vein, we're going to look at Tesla. Starting on Valentine's Day, if you want your new Tesla to steer itself, you'll have to pay a $99 monthly subscription fee. Tesla currently offers a pair of so-called Level 2 partially automated driver assist systems. Autopilot is the older of these. It combines Tesla's adaptive cruise control, which Tesla calls TACC, and lane keeping assist, and they call this auto steer. FSD is the newer system, meant to be more capable and for use on surface streets and divided lane highways. Although the company and Tesla CEO Elon Musk regularly tout these systems' capabilities, both still require the human driver to provide situational awareness. However, autopilot has been under fire from regulators in the courts. Multiple wrongful death lawsuits are in the works, and after a high-profile loss resulting in a $329 million judgment against Tesla, expect many of these suits to be settled. Both the federal government and the state of California have investigated whether Tesla misled customers, and in December, an administrative law judge ruled that Tesla indeed engaged in deceptive marketing by implying that its cars could drive themselves. The judge suspended Tesla's license to sell cars in California, a decision that the California Department of Motor Vehicles stayed for 60 days. Now, if you want to buy a new Tesla and you want it to steer itself while you pay attention to the road, of course, you will have to pay for FSD until the middle of February. That can be done for a one-time fee of $8,000. But starting on February 14th, that option goes away too, and the sole choice will be the $99 a month FSD subscription. Last night as of this recording, or as of this article, He revealed on the social media platform that the $99 a month for supervised FSD will rise as FSD's capabilities improve. So that's the starting point. It'll probably get more expensive. According to the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, Tesla has reported 9 crashes involving its robo-taxi fleet in Austin, Texas. Between July and November 2025, various like right turn collision incident, 18 miles per hour. So there's a lot going on with Tesla. There seems to be some significant legal exposure, but I'm going to end the tech news roundup here. So thanks a bunch.
All right. Big thanks to Chris Moyer for taking the time to record that for us so that we could continue to enjoy his tech news roundup, even when he can't be here. Much appreciated. I'm going to pause things here and we're going to go to breakout rooms now so that you can all. All right. Time for announcements. Eric Matthews, you had something you wanted to share about full access. Eric, are you there? You're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, wasn't quite ready. So am I the only one?
You're not the only one. If you'd like me to handle some other business first, I can.
Oh yeah, let me set this up real quick.
Okay. So if you're a new attendee, please send me your email address so that we can add you to our groups.io list. And you'll find that it's a pretty good list for FMDiSC. It's good quality and not a lot of noise. Also, Sol Rodriguez is the host for the March FMDiSC meeting. If you'd like to contribute a presentation or discuss content, then please contact him ASAP so that he can maybe set something up for you. And that's so whenever you're ready, Eric, that's all I have.
All right. See if I can share some slides to go along with this. You see that okay?
It's coming up. Yes.
Yeah. So this is just a quick recap. Full Access 2025 was a blast. All these people showed up, had a zany time, fun time, refreshing time, a time to learn. We were a lot of good topics. In fact, we were in the breakout room. David was asking, we could glean any more people from that. We also had a time to enter the lab and discuss some interesting topics, and a time with a lot of talented, knowledgeable, and helpful people. It was such a success that Claris showed up and said they'd show up again in greater force if we would do it again. Within commute distance of Claris headquarters, that was a key factor. Coincidentally, Claris announced they are taking time off from Engage in the US this year to regroup, which leaves a big gap for all of us to fill. And so that's when I don't know if John Howell's here today, but John Howell got really excited about that, and he decided to book a really beautiful facility, a Asilomar Conference Grounds in Pacific Grove, California. Yeah, it was, and he got me so excited about Asilomar. I went to stay there last month, not the whole month, just like a night or two, and to see what it was like. And it was like a dream vacation with facilities well suited for conferences and for a couple hundred people or more. I would visit it just on my own dime if just to stay there, without the conference even. However, it would have forced the organizers to risk.
Do you have any interest in this? It's so nice, I don't want to throw it out, but
yeah, yeah. So it, it would have forced the organizers, unfortunately, to risk a significant investment. If we ever wanted to meet someplace like this in the future, it would probably be a lot of advanced registrations or some kind of crowd fund, and we would have to at least triple our last attendance. So that takes us back to the same Los Altos venue that we used last year, and it will be in August 6th through 10th, 2026. The good news is that the Los Altos Retreat Center is very affordable, and we still have room to double our attendance there from last time. Right from the start, we already tripled the number of sponsors who want to be involved since last time. And then Claris uh, is officially in as a sponsor. So this is even more exciting than last time. By the way, you see how the Dig FM meetup group is listed as a contributor down there. All I have to do for that is register a couple representatives from our team to attend, keep welcoming our attendees to register, and we're going to live stream one or more of the sessions as extra meetups that month, live from Los Altos, California. I think it would be fun, a fun experiment if a couple other meetup groups would join us to do the same kind of thing. FMDiSC would be the biggest and best group presence at full access I could think of and that we could hope for. Just some of the early bird registrants are right here if you want to take a quick look at those. Um, so yeah, it's full access. FileMaker conference, it's coming up. We do have a discount code for you if that gets through this little animation real quick. But yes, this is going to be what we call our Engage fix in 26 because Engage isn't going to be going on this year. So this is what we got in the United States, I think. I think this will probably be the premier event in, even though it's we only have maybe room for 120 or so, I think. But yes, that'll be there. Oh, it says $100 off. It's actually $150 off with that discount code. That's FA26 Dig FM1. I'll put that in the chat if you guys are interested. And I hope I stayed under my 5 minutes. Any questions? Well, then that's it.
Thanks for sharing that, Eric.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. Eric, you can go ahead and stop sharing.
Oh yeah, still staring, huh? Thanks.
All right. Well, as you heard earlier, there's a new version of Monkeybread software out, and Christian Schmitz is here to talk about it. So, Christian, are you ready?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I just share my screen. And anyone from you who likes to do some translation on a Mac or iOS device can use MBS plugin to do on-device translation using Apple's frameworks. So you can check if it's available. Apple officially supports it for developers with 26, but I also backported it to work on macOS 15 and iOS 18. So we can check the languages we have. We can pick here of languages and translate something. So you can have local translation on your Mac. This may be good to, for example, have your solution be translated. Like if you add new buttons, you add new text to your user interface, and you need to fill up your tables with all the translation text, you can use this to get some text translated. And since it's running locally, it doesn't cost you any fees. And you can enjoy whatever Apple provides as translation. And they have a couple of languages here. So you can translate to Spanish, for example, if you like. So let's try it. ¿Cómo estás? So then I have a feature for developers. There is a new button in the script workspace. There's a little search button here. And if you click it, the plugin takes a snapshot of your scripts and you can search them for some text. And it's quite fast. And it shows you the scripts where the word is found. You can search for several things, of course. And if you have search results, you can click on them. So you can click on them and jump to the line where you find it. find the text. This is currently the version in beta for the next release. So we have here already some grouping to show you all the things grouped by script. And there's also a copy button, which copies the results into the clipboard. So you can see which lines have the text and can maybe keep this as a to-do list to go through all the results. If you like, you can have several search windows. So you can have one search window and then make some changes and make a new search window. So you can keep the search result on screen and then search again for something else. The people on Windows will be happy to see that there is a button in the script workspace on Windows to open the same dialog, but it doesn't have the feature to jump to the line and to the script. That's something we have only for Mac. And one of the improvements I made recently is to better support folders. So let's say you have a folder here, you have a script, and you search for something which is in the script in the folder. The plugin will know. Oh, wait, I have to read in the thing again. Session. So it shows you that it's in the folder and you can click on it and the plugin opens you the folder and goes to the script and then shows you the line where the text is found. So please try this feature and let me know how you like it. So do you have any questions about that?
Hey, I got one question. Can you also search the underlying XML? You know, like the little flags that say script step is disabled or something? You know, so you could find commented out code.
Wow, that's a good question. Let me make something.
Probably build that by tomorrow.
Yeah, that's another thing. Could just build that. Let's put here hello in. Now we want to disable that, and now we want to start a new search and search for disabled. No, I would have to think about how to search this.
I'll crack the XML, give you an example.
Yeah. Well, we are already searching the XML. That's how this works internally. But I would have to think about what to enter here to find something which is disabled, because I don't want to just search for the tag names, because some tag names are really basically in every line. So we'll think about something. So another thing I worked on the last days.
Sorry, Christian, can you ask you something about the search feature?
Yeah, sure.
If you have a big solution, you can search in all the script quite fast.
Yeah.
For example, you're searching for a variable and you want to see how many times it is used. It's fast, even on a lot of scripts.
Yeah, we have tested it with solutions with 2,000 scripts, and it's within a second. It's
Very
not a
cool.
problem here. But please try. I mean, this is a thing every developer may like to have. So just put in the plugin, open it in a new solution, and see if the search works for you. But,
and the way to alter the XML, you don't think to put it sometimes in the search engine's replacement?
Well, I have a long list of wishes already. So this is a feature which will grow over the next year a lot.
Very cool. Thank you.
Then there's another thing I worked on, because you guys seem to love LLMs so much. So there's a Llama library, which allows you to use LLM locally on your Mac, Windows, or Linux PC. And we can load a model. Window is too big. We can load a local model. And then we can ask a question, well, what is FileMaker? And the cool thing is this runs on your computer, so it doesn't use some web servers with which costs money, but you can just have a decent computer and run something locally. Like this model actually knows FileMaker. And so we could ask it questions and it would just run locally. So whatever you like to use the LM for, you could do that locally. So we have so far a couple of functions like to load a model and to start a context where you specify a few options like the context size. Then you can define the sampler, which is actually the thing picking the next token. And then we can send in things. Here there's a chat function and a query function where you can send in your text. You give it a maximum number of tokens, and then it eventually comes back with your answer. Yeah. Any question about that?
Hey, Christian, for later, I dropped the script snippet with the commented out code and a little note. So if you click 3 dots before the end of the meeting, you'll have the complete feature request I predicted is going to be a crowd pleaser, that feature.
Okay, so search for disabled script steps.
The string within every single any script step that is disabled will always 100% of the time have a string STEP space enabled equals false in quotes. That exact string is exactly what you would search for to find commented out code. Useful if you're a developer who likes to clean up your code from time to time.
Yeah, sure. So any other question? So MBS plugin has many more functions, and I didn't want to take. Yeah.
If you want to do an embedding of photos locally, there's a way to do some search, but you don't want to push the photo to external server.
Well, I've been just playing with the LLama for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy that we can chat with it.
Okay.
So we may think about more, and we'll see what Claris will do, because I think they can integrate it better into FileMaker.
Mm-hmm. Very cool, this one.
Yeah, please check out the other functions we have. So any other question about the plugin? But otherwise, I'm done.
Yeah, Christian, I just want to make sure that we all understand, what the limitations are here for this latest feature. So you have to have a locally stored LLM for it to query that's your own created LLM for this to work, right? That's the purpose of it.
Yeah, I download a few LLMs already. There are websites where you can just download smaller or bigger models, and then you can play with them.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. My big burning question is Louis here yet? Because he has not been up to this point. Let's see. We're short a presenter, so Christian, if you had anything else that you'd like to share, feel free. You have time. If not, then we'll open for discussion until Louis gets here.
Let me look. Yeah, I have a few more functions maybe we can check out. For example, sometimes it's useful to know what files are open in FileMaker. So I've been working on where's my keyboard? Open files function, which allows you to ask the plugin which files are open in FileMaker currently, which tells you, of course, which database files are open, as well as where FileMaker stores temporary files. So here we see there's an example file open. Then let's just go to the documentation and see what we have new. So what could be interesting for use? Oh, we have a JSON to tune function. So if you need to feed a lot of data to an LLM, you can save significant space. So save on tokens if you pass the text as in the tune format instead of the JSON format. The tune format is very, let's say, compact way to pass data like CSV, but with some metadata, so the LLM knows what fields you have. Then we have a lot of functions. We got new functions for insert or update. So if you query some records of data into a matrix in the plugin, you can ask the plugin to move them into records in FileMaker and either insert a new record or update an existing record based on some key files, key fields you provide. That's something you may be interested in. There's also a version to do this with SQL databases, so you can connect your FileMaker to whatever Postgres, Microsoft SQL Server, or MySQL, and copy over data from a matrix, which is a fantastic way to hold data in memory. Like you can query something, you can add columns, remove columns, do calculations on the data in memory, and then you can output it to a database. Then I also worked on our OCR functions, which can now make a PDF of the file. So you can put in an image, and it will recognize the text and output a PDF. We had that before with our DynaPDF functions, but now we have it built into the Tesseract engine. So if anyone has needs to make PDF with text, you can do that. If you use the fidget devices, we have no support for LED arrays for the 16.1 version. If you like to format your calculations, you can now tell the plugin to add a space before a semicolon, which some people seem to like. And yeah, the LyricsL library got an update, so we have now a few more functions for conditional formatting. And there's also a way to just load an Excel file to read which sheets are available. So you can only pick the sheets you need to load instead of loading a whole file. So lots of new features for the last version and the next version. Check out the plugin. And basically all of this is just added because someone asked for it in the community.
Hey, Christian, can I throw 3 functions at you and ask if you could do them? Can you do get the script stack? You know what I mean? The thing that shows up at the bottom of the, this script calls this script, this calls this script, and also the thing that's it's all visible in the data
Well,
viewer.
you can ask Rick.
It's not accidental. I'm asking the question at this time.
And I have a function to get the call stack, but it reads the call stack from the debugger window.
Okay, all right. So that's not as useful as
I
it would be if it was built in.
Yeah, I can only read what's on screen or what you get somehow from FileMaker. But if you really want to have a function to get the current script call stack, you would have to ask Claris for a little
and maybe Rick is. But how about get doc specs? When we do pickers, I have some code that's really kind of a little more complicated than it could be because it doesn't know the location of the doc and the sizing. Is that something? I got one more after that, but is that something? Get doc specs?
What is a doc specs?
Is the doc in the Macintosh platform is the doc showing?
Oh, yeah.
And is it on the left? Is it on the right? And what's the measurement? Because if you're throwing up a pick window, like a picker, it would be good to
Yeah.
know what the usable space is.
You know, I have a search feature and you can put in doc. So you see we have a doc width and a doc height function, which tells you the size. And usually we would ask for the variable space. Oh, wait, don't I have a function with it?
Very nice.
Okay.
Well, that's an awesome feature in your plugin. I can think of a platform that would be useful. Okay, last one. Get, sort, stack. And I see Louis here, so that's the last one. Can you when you're doing a list view and you have sort buttons, you know how like the sort state? It's not really the sort stack, the sort state. Like, did you sort by first name? Did you sort by last name?
How
It
you
would,
sort in FileMaker.
yeah, in other words, if you have a list view and you have last name, first name, and organization, you click a button. Often people want to have a visual display of the current, how it is sorted, I'll call it the sort state. And having that in a function would enable you to have a visual indicator that would leverage the function in some conditional formatted kind of way. Get, sort, state.
Yeah, I think that's a wish for Claris because I currently don't know how I would read that.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for entertaining my questions. I see Louis here, so I'll stop talking.
We can talk
I
more
love that.
at full access.
I love that you asked Christian for two features out of three that he already pretty much had in there, or at least variations on them.
All right, Christian, you owe me a percent.
Well, with 7,800 functions built over almost 20 years, yeah, you got something
I have
for
them all
everyone.
memorized.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Christian. I appreciate you sharing the latest in Monkeybread, and look forward to seeing what you come up with next, because there's always something, right? Um, okay. Louis is here, and Louis is
Hi.
going to share with us. Hi, Louis. He's going to share with us new MCP features in FileMaker. I think this is going to be very cool. Louis, are you ready to go?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
All right.
And actually, before we start, I just want to say I don't think I've ever had a chance to present here before. I've definitely come to the meetings back when they were in person. I mean, maybe close to a decade ago at this point. So thank you for the opportunity to let me present. Makes me very happy. I'm happy to share some stuff with you. So thank you guys. I
Well,
appreciate it.
thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Before we actually start, I dig into some of the demos and some of the information I'm going to talk about with Claris MCP. I do want to do a little bit of level setting so I can tailor what we're going to talk about to the group. Just out of curiosity, how many folks have either used MCP before or used Claris MCP before at all? Do we feel like we are we know it well, or do we feel like we should start from like the ground up and then build towards something greater?
You guys can use your raise hand if you want.
I'll do my best to look at for the raised hand. So raise your hand if you've used MCP before, or if you've seen the previous community lives and want me to kind of move faster, or don't raise your hand if you want me to just start from the beginning and then we'll gradually go into something deeper. I don't think I see any hands. So
you've got three hands raised so far. One of them is
okay.
your
1,
colleague.
2, 3, 4. Okay.
Four now.
4.
Yeah,
okay.
we have a total of 4.
Let's do this. I'm going to start from the ground up either way, so we kind of get a sense of where we are with MCP and what it can do. If you folks have questions while I'm walking through things, please let's discuss them. Feel free to shout them out. If for whatever reason we feel like we're not going to have time to get through anything, I may just ask us to park on something or any of the questions. But let's start out. First and foremost, I'm not going to do any slides here. I'm just going to focus on the actual content, and if we need to at the end, I'll follow back up with some details. MCP is called the Model Context Protocol. It is a way that was previously introduced to market by Anthropic, and it's now been widely adopted within the AI ecosystem. The MCP that I'm going to show you today is specific to FileMaker. One of the greatest things that MCP gives us is the ability to explain to an AI client how our FileMaker servers or FileMaker databases are structured and how our users interact with them. And so when we talk about model context protocol, I want us to think about the model context as the information from our FileMaker database that we're going to be giving to the LLM in order to allow it to very accurately take actions on our behalf, like create a record, delete a record, execute a script, so on and so forth. So with that in mind, I want to start in FileMaker, and we could talk a little bit about the permissions, and I'm going to share my screen in just a second. And just kind of go through some of the settings that we're going to start in order to enable this. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes, we see it.
Oh, awesome. And so what I have here is a database. We call it PeakWorks. I'm sure you've seen Robert use this database before. I certainly use it as we walk through these individual demos. The goal of this database is to give us a foundation to talk about some of these MCP tools and some of the features in FileMaker. So for this particular database, I have a couple of layouts, right? Jobs, services, an archive, technicians, and notifications, and then a few databases or a few tables, I should say, that support those layouts. And so really quickly, I just want to go to the relationship tab and just show you what this looks like under the hood. We have a jobs table, which is associated with notifications, and a technicians table, and a services table. But then we also have this table occurrence over here that matches this same table occurrence here. We're going to talk about why that is in a little bit. And you can see the tables lined out in the Manage Database dialog. The other thing that we're going to look at, just again, starting from FileMaker, is at least one script. And that particular script is called the assign job script. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you folks. Nope, it's not working. This particular script accepts two parameters, a technician ID and a job ID, and then goes off and performs a find. And if nothing is found, we'll create a record. We'll talk later on about why that's important. And then last but not least, just to orient us again in FileMaker, this particular database has a very specific account with a privilege set that has some extended capabilities to it. And so you'll see here at the very bottom, I have an account called MCP_account with a privilege set of Claris MCP. And then if I were to go into that privilege set, you'll see that I have two extended privileges, right? One for the FileMaker data API with FMRest, and the other for OData with FMOData. We're going to circle back here in a bit. And then for my records, I have create, edit, and delete in all tables. So effectively, what we have here thus far is a FileMaker database with a few tables that I'd like to connect to an AI client, and then some permissions that allow me to connect to that client. If I were to give you folks an analogy here, you could think of this very much like connecting via OData or the data API, where we're going to create a very specific account with specific privilege sets in order to connect to our database, and that's going to feed the AI client with some information. So there, I'll pause for any questions or comments on just the general structure of the database we're going to be connecting today, the tables, the layouts, the script, and then the security. All seems kind of old hat.
Makes sense.
Cool. All right. So with that, let's go through and actually create the MCP context that's going to give the information to our client, and then we'll use that client to take some actions in our FileMaker database. So all of that exposition that I gave you on the FileMaker file will lead us into what we call AI workspace, and specifically MCP configuration within AI workspace. I'll pause here to just mention, in order to access AI Workspace, you must have a studio account and you must be a team manager in that studio account. So this portion of the functionality is very much designed for you folks, the developers, the people that are either creating a FileMaker database or administrating it for a company. You'll be the folks that will use the AI Workspace in order to create the connection. Once the connection is created, we believe your end users will use that connection in order to take actions in the database, right? Very much like, again, OData or the data API. And so I've got AI Workspace up here. It's aiworkspace.platform.claris.com. If you've got a studio account and you're an AT manager, you can just head there and sign in. If you don't have that account, the first step would be getting a studio account, making sure you're a team manager, and then heading back to this page. What I would really quickly, and if I'm going too fast, let me know. Happy to slow down. Really quickly, just as a level set, I want to call out that there is some documentation that we try to provide to you to make getting onboarded and working with MCP context easier. And so if you go to the bottom left corner of the AI Workspace, you'll see that there's a documentation tab, and that documentation tab will take you to Claris help specifically to MCP. And what that has on it is just a general overview of what MCP is. And as I mentioned, it's what's called the Model Context Protocol, which is an open protocol that standardizes how applications provide context to language models. In this case, our application is FileMaker. And then it also has some additional resources and best practices that we found over time to be useful. Right? One of the things we talked about earlier is things like the access control via the FileMaker's managed security dialog. Jumping back into AI Workspace, you'll notice that from my workspace here, I don't have anything configured. And so what I'd like to try to do with you folks today is create a configuration, add it to Claude, do some experiments, and then if we have time and the group wants to do it, maybe dive a little bit deeper into some other clients as well and the structure of MCP. So I'm going to start creating this context by clicking to get started in the middle of this page here. And it's going to ask me for the context, name, and a description. Now, both of these things are just for us. They're not used by the AI client or the LLM yet. They're really just for us to remember what this particular MCP context is. And so I'll call this PeakWorks, since that was the name of our database. And I'll say a database to manage jobs and technicians. Okay, just for me for later. And so by doing that, I've created an MCP context, which would be expressed as tools, resources, and prompts. Those are the major pillars of MCP. But I don't yet have any of those tools, resources, or prompts because I haven't created a connection to FileMaker. And so the next step here will be to create that connection. And then AI Workspace here in the MCP configuration will use that connection to define the tools, resources, and prompts that make up the MCP context. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this Add Connection. It's going to ask me for a connection name. Again, that's just for me to remember what this is later on. And I'll, again, because I'm not very creative, I'll call this PeakWorks as well. And then the domain is going to be the domain of my FileMaker server. And so this always autocorrects itself to the wrong value. It's actually scarif-fm. And then I'll use the username and password that we saw earlier, right? What we're going to do when I click next, or what AI Workspace is going to do when I click next, it's going to look at that database, or it's going to look at the databases that account has available, and it's going to ask me which one I'd like to use for my first connection. Now, one thing that is quite cool here is you can have as many connections as you want per context, and then you can have as many contexts as you want per your team or organization. And so while we're setting up one database here with a few tables, you could absolutely do multiple. What I would call out is as you use this technology, you'll probably find, as I did, that you want to try to be selective with the number of tools, resources, and prompts that you make available to the LLM or the AI client. And you want to do that so that it is more reliable for the AI client or the LLM to select that tool, right? If you think of just math, right? If you have 50 tools and you have the client choose from 50, it has less likely of a chance to choose the right one than if you have 5 tools, right? Just increasing the odds and you're reducing the amount of context for the LLM or the AI client to consume. And so just call that out. You can have as many connections with the MCP context as you want. You can have as many contexts as you want within your organization. Being selective on the tools and the connections that you create per context is very, very useful. Any questions or comments thus far? I feel like I might be going a little fast, but please, if any of you agree, just let me know and I'll slow it down.
I have a question.
Please go
At
for it.
the point in where you were creating the context and connecting to the account, it brought in the account and password. So is that a security hole that once you get to that point in that creation that suddenly it's telling you what the account and password is?
Oh, yes, I could see how you'd see that. That was just my Safari kind of auto filling in the MCP account and password. That wasn't necessarily the AI workspace doing it. In that case, it's a little bit of a demo magic. It just allows me to enter those credentials without necessarily exposing it to y'all during the demo.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the one thing I would call out, and when we get there, I'll enforce this, is there is another set of what I'll call credentials, but it's really a token that allows your end users to access MCP. That token is sensitive, right? You want to be really careful of how you share that token. You don't want to necessarily commit it to Git or just share it around. You consider it like a password. That token is going to link into the FileMaker account that we saw earlier. And so you could think of that token as like a stand-in for the account that you created or that we created. I'll touch on this when we get there. But the other thing I'd call out is you also want to be really careful to give the permissions that align with the FileMaker security practices that we know and love today, right? Give the account only access to the tables and scripts that it needs and not just general full access. And that's the same of both OData and the Data API. So a little bit of a tangent there, but I wanted to just call that out. I'll reinforce that when we get there later.
Louis, just so you know, you were worried about pacing. I know nothing about this so far, and I've been following along just fine. So I think your pacing is good.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll check the PeakWorks database here and choose next, and we'll move forward. What the MCP configuration with an AI workspace is going to do is it's going to review with me the tables and the scripts that I'd like to use in order to create the context. And so in this case, I'd like jobs and I'd like technicians tables to be accessible in my AI client or via my LLM. Just as a nice to have, we also have the ability for you to search and limit things. Like if I wanted to really quickly find a table because I have a lot of them, you could do that there. The other thing I would call out, and I mentioned this earlier, for simplicity, we are only showing the base tables that have a table occurrence that matches the base table name. And so if you have a lot of table occurrences, you might see a lot of table occurrences that match your base tables, you might see a lot. If you have a table occurrence that does not match your base table, you won't see it here. That was just to reduce the UI clutter. We do have some improvements coming later on that will allow you to select either the base tables or a specific table occurrence. There, I would call out, as with all FileMaker calculations, choosing a table occurrence versus a base table might affect the calculation values or the related values that you might see in a table. So I found generally it's best to just choose a base table and then not to look at any related information, right? Because based on the table occurrence that you're looking at, that information may change. Before I move forward, let me just go back here. We saw that when I went to the database and I showed the services table occurrence with an underscore and the services table occurrence without it. You'll notice that only the services table occurrence was included, not the services with the underscore. That's because my base table is services and not services with the underscore. So some interesting functionality. We're making some adjustments there to make it even wider. In this case, we really focused on making it simple rather than making it exhaustive, and we'll find the right balance as we move forward. Okay, so I've selected jobs and technicians, and just for completeness, there's a services table that I'm not going to select. I'll choose next, and now it's going to ask me to select a script that I'd like. And so in this case, there is just the one script that we talked about earlier, the assign job script. And so I want to allow my AI client, in this case, it's going to be Claude Desktop, to execute this script. And so I'm going to include it when creating the connection. With that, I've done all the configuration I need to do. I can choose create connection. And we'll see that I get a whole bunch of tools or MCP tools created that are under the context. We create multiple tools per table and one tool per script. As we move forward, when we get later on, I'll show you some of the structure of this. But for now, know that every table that you create creates multiple tools. And those tools are specifically allow you to, let me highlight them, create records, delete records, search records, list records, and then get a table definition, right? See if I can see that there. Yeah, like get jobs definition. And so for the scripts, we'll have one script, which is called executes the assign job script, right? So multiple tools for the table, one tool for the script. Okay, we're not going to go into the configuration yet, but we will in a little bit. The next thing I'd like to try to do is, now that we've created the connection, let's make the configuration work with Claude Desktop. And so you'll notice here that I have an MCP context, the PeakWorks that I created earlier, and right next to it, it says editing. What we've done with AI Workspace and the MCP configuration is introduce what I'll call an SDLC paradigm, right? A software development lifecycle paradigm, where you move between editing, testing, and deployment, right? This is somewhat new within our ecosystem, but we feel like with AI technology and cloud technology, it's very important to do this. We're starting with editing, right? That allows us to update the tools that we have. And what we'll do is move from editing to testing so we can evaluate how well our AI client or LLM model actually goes through and is capable of using the tools. And so I'm going to do that by going to the update context option in the top right corner and move us from the editing stage to the testing stage. If you've dabbled in some of the AI work that's gone around in that ecosystem, you might hear the term of evaluations, right? Where you would evaluate how well the AI client and the MCP tools answer the questions that you're giving it or perform the actions that you've asked of it, right? How well it does the job, somewhat on its own, so to speak. That is where the testing phase comes in. So I would highly recommend, as you work through this SDLC workflow, to spend time in testing. Take the configuration, put it into the client that you want to use, ensure that it does give value to the user and does exactly what you would expect, and then adjust if you find that that's not the case. And by doing so, you'll end up delivering a lot more value to end users, and the tools that you create will be selected much more predictably. So we're going to hang out in the testing role for now. When we move into the deployment role, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Thus far, we've created MCP context. We've added a connection. Based on the connection and the tools and scripts available, we've created tools for those tables and scripts. And now we're going to take the configuration and we're going to add that configuration to Claude Desktop in order to make the connection between FileMaker and our AI client. I do that by clicking the configuration just next to the context. And you'll notice when this pops up, I have quite a few different configurations that you could select. And the reason why is because I'm showing you Claude Desktop today as it's a pretty good starting point for working with MCP. But the way that we've designed MCP and just fundamentally the way that MCP works, you can choose many clients. And so we've done our best to give you the most popular configurations per the client that you're using. the question may be, well, okay, like how do I know which configuration to use? And there I would point you towards that client's configuration, right? Or that client's help documentation. They will very clearly state what types of connections they support. In the case of Claude Desktop, if you're just getting started, it would be a server file and then this proxy configuration down at the bottom. So I'm going to copy this, and now I've got it in my clipboard, and we'll head on over to Claude Desktop, and we'll walk through how to connect it. And actually, I'll pause for a second. Any questions or comments thus far? Awesome. All right. Let me head on over to Claude Desktop. And see, I've got it here. And what I'll do in order to add the configuration is I'm going to go to Claude and then Settings, and then head on to the Developer tab on the left-hand side. And you'll see that it gives you the option to edit a config. Now, this config is a file. It's a JSON-based file. And if you were eagle-eyed, you saw earlier, that is what I selected in the configuration, a server file, and then what's called the proxy command. And if I were to open up this file, I get something that looks like this with MCP servers and preferences. And what I will do, I'll do a little bit of cleanup here just based on the way that I copied it, is I'm going to paste in that information into my into the file that it gives us. So I have to do a little bit of cleanup. Hopefully I get this right. Sometimes I end up messing it up just because I already have some settings already enabled. I will hit save. It looks like I'm okay. MCP servers. Nope. Gotta remove one more. Preferences. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to restart Claude. And if all goes well, I should see that my MCP server is running, and then we can go ahead and ask it a question. So fingers crossed, everyone. I'll restart Claude here. And then if we go back into the settings that we saw earlier and into the developer configuration, you'll see now I have what's called a Claris proxy, and it's currently running. Now, just for completeness, that name there is really comes from here. So if you wanted to go ahead and name that something better like PeakWorks or something more descriptive of your connection, you could do so. It'd be in the JSON config. Again, other clients will have other configurations, but Claude Desktop takes a server file with the configuration. Once you see that it's running here, we can actually go back, get a new chat, and I can now test it out by just asking a question. And so one of the things I will ask in this case is just how many jobs do I have today? Or how many, let's say, active jobs do I have today? So how many active jobs do I have today? And once this is asked, if Claude Desktop picks up the fact that I have the tools, it's going to go and execute, in this case, the search job records tool, and then the list job records tool in order to bring the information from FileMaker into Claude Desktop. And so thus far, we've added the configuration. We've created the configuration with the connection to our FileMaker file. We've taken that configuration, we've added it to Claude, and now the AI client, Claude, has used that connection in order to query some information from our database. And let's go in a little bit further, just to grab more information and say, can you give me more details about the in-progress jobs? And so now it should take the information it had previously, do some more searching in order to access the information, and then give me back some more details. In this case now, because it's now dug into it a little bit more, it can see that I actually have a few jobs, 20 that are an emergency, 18 that are high, 16 that are low, so on and so forth. And so I can now use this to have a more conversational interface with my data in FileMaker. And so I can say, which plumbing job is ready to be worked on? And it's both using the information that I had previously, because I'm in the same chat session, and the additional tools that I have in order to find these specific items. And so here I've got, looks like 12 or so that came from the search jobs records tool that we created. I can go even further, right? And I could say, what available technicians do I have that can work on Frederick, not spell this correctly, Frederick Tate's emergency. And what it will do is now search for the technicians. Because we're accessing this particular tool for the first time, Claude's going to ask me to allow it or allow it once or allow it multiple times. In this case, for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to always allow everything, and we'll let this run. If you're doing something that might be considered destructive, right, like deleting a record, you may not want to say always allow. You may only want to allow it one time or only after you review it. And so I've chosen always allow, but know that you have the option of coordinating it off a little bit. And so it's asking me which emergency job would I like, and I'll do the one in Palo Alto. And then I will assign, in this case, Shea Lopez. And so what it should do is go through and update the jobs record that I have to add Shea Lopez, and then return back the information for me. And so at this point, I'll pause. We're going to go into some of the tool definition first, but what you've seen thus far is us interacting with our FileMaker database, pulling in some of the information based on the questions that I've asked, and then taking an action in the database in order to assign a particular technician to a particular job. I'll pause here for any questions or comments.
Hi, Louis. I have a quick question and comment. Great to see you here.
Yes,
great stuff.
Thank you.
So I noticed you're using Opus 4.6. Do you find that some of the higher end models help when working with the FileMaker MCP, or is it just depending on how much how much inference power you need, you just decide at that point?
If I'm being transparent, which I always strive to do, it was just set for Opus 4.6. I think before this I was specifying it. Generally, I always try to use the smallest model possible with the least amount of resources required, because that forces me as a developer of these systems to really make sure it's efficient. And so in this case, yes, I'm using 4.6 because I was testing it out beforehand, but I would really strive for a smaller model when developing this, because then you're not using as many resources and you're ensuring that it's going to be efficient. Generally, I find that like Sonnet 4.5 or Sonnet 4 work fairly well for most tasks. If we have time towards the end, we can get into another client like Fast Agent, where you can actually combine models together, or combine what I will call agents, for lack of a better term, together. And that's where something like Opus 4.6 comes into play, because it's much more resource intensive, but it has the capability to plan and take more coordinated information from other agents. That's where you'd really get into the larger models. Let me know if that doesn't answer your question or if you've got a follow-up.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Louis, I have a question.
Yes.
So earlier, when it was asking which of the two jobs for that customer you wanted to assign that technician to, you chose one of them using the interface that Claude presented to you with a pick list. What if you had wanted to? I'm going to create a scenario here. What if you'd wanted to assign both of them to that technician in sequence? And would that depend more on your scripting or on Claude's ability to solve that some other way, or when you start to get into more advanced things that would save you more time, what direction do you have to go with something like this?
Just hearing the question, I would push it more towards scripting, right? I think the really powerful part of FileMaker, the thing that makes FileMaker so special, is the scripting engine. It allows you to control a lot as a developer. And so hearing the use case of being able to assign two sequentially, I would control that within a FileMaker script, because it's more what I'll call deterministic rather than allow the LLM to decide. I didn't use that here because we haven't gotten into any of the scripts, but that would be my suggestion to rely on scripting and what I will call deterministic behavior over the probabilistic behavior of the LLM.
Cool. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, so far we've taken a bunch of actions, but as I mentioned earlier, we really didn't go in and we don't know what these tools look like, and we haven't executed the script, which is what I was just finishing saying was like so powerful, right? And so what we'll do is take a step back and head back into AI Workspace and look at some of the tools that we have, and look at some of their structure and talk about how as a developer can add a lot of rich definition to that structure, which will allow a more rich experience to your end users. So I'm going to skip on over, and we may get to the MCP inspector towards the end, depending on how much time we have, which will show this in an even more clearer use case. But as I mentioned, we're in testing mode here, and we want to make sure that the LLM or the AI client behaves as we would expect. And so since we did some testing and we decided we want to use the script, I'm going to move us back into editing mode, and then make some definitions before we move back into testing again. Again, this is a common pattern that will allow us to get a really rich experience. I'll choose move to editing, and now you'll see that I'm in the editing stage. And we'll go in, and first I want to show you some of the tool details, and then we'll look at the script itself. And so one of the things I mentioned earlier on is that we probably don't want all of the tools available all of the time. And so for my particular use case here, I want folks to be able to search records and list records and make updates, but I really don't want my end users with Claude deleting records. That's just not a boundary that I think would work for this particular context. And so as the administrator, as the person defining this, I can come in here in editing mode and turn off the tools that I no longer want the LLM to have access to. By doing that, I'm removing those tools from the list that the AI client or the LLM is able to select from. And so that is another level of control that you have in curating this experience for your end users, both at the FileMaker security level via the managed security dialog, and then within the configuration by either enabling or disabling tools or updating the definition. The other thing I'd probably want to do is, as I come in here, is to provide a better description, or a description, I should say, an input schema for my MCP tools. And the reason why I'd suggest doing that is because, and I'll give you an example here. Folks, I'm assuming on the call, are relatively familiar with REST APIs. We have them in the data API, similar structure in OData. And those REST APIs allow you to make actions. And at the end of the day, for tools, that is one part of MCP tools. It allows you to take actions, just like a REST API. The difference between a REST API and MCP is that MCP is like getting the REST API and the documentation for the REST API together. And that documentation comes in the form of the tool description and the tool's input schema. That is what informs the AI client or the LLM how this tool works, what it requires, and what it does. And so the more descriptive we can get about this information, the better the LLM is going to be in accessing it. So here I have, creates a record in the jobs table. Just thinking on the fly here, I might say the jobs table is where all of our customer requests go. And when we assign technicians, we do so against a job. And so that description will help the LLM understand when a job should be created. The other thing I do is take a look at the input schema here. And there's some very specific behavior that we're going to get into, but each input schema is a field that the LLM will use in order to create the information. Like we would ask it to create a job, which we'll do in a minute. It'll create it with a company as a string, an email as a string, and even some of these rather odd looking names, which are also a string. And so the more detail you give it about the input schema and the description, again, the better the LLM is going to be. And so in this case, I may say that, hey, anytime a job is created, it must have a company name. And so I can come in here in my input schema and make that required. Nope, it helps if I actually, oh, little UI issue there. Okay. So now the company name is required, and I can say required field anytime a job is created. Just again, help the LM understand that it's always needed. And now if we were to go back into Claude Desktop, now that I made this change, it would only ever create a job when a company is available, or when a company is provided, right? And so let me just to kind of end this, I'll hit save here. And that is an example of pulling or refining the information in these tools to make them more selectable. Now, there's a couple other things that I mentioned in passing that I want to really quickly follow up on, and that is how some of this information is populated, specifically around these fields that look like FMID and the number, and then I guess what I would refer to as the particular tools that are created, or descriptions for the tools. And so here I will tell you, we take the field names from your FileMaker database, and where required, we will map them to either what we call a safe name, or if you're running FileMaker Server 22.0.4 or above, the ID. Right, one of great enhancements that was added to OData in support of MCP was the ability to reference fields by ID rather than name. And the reason that was added was because, along with many other clients, some MCP clients cannot take special characters that FileMaker is able to accept. And by special characters, I'd really call out anything that is non-ASCII. Tends to be an issue for not only MCP, but other clients. And so anytime when we pull the information, creating the MCP connection, we look for those characters and we'll replace them with either a safe version, something without that non-ASCII character, or if you're running FileMaker Server 22.0.4 and above, the ID. And so there you might think, well, okay, if I did that, well then, like, does the LLM understand what the ID is and that it's actually a field? And the answer is it depends. It depends on how the definition of the tool is created, or the get table definition tool is defined, and whether it's available to your model. And that was a lot. Some are going to show this to you. I have this create jobs table, and it's got an FMID of something ends in 389. If I were to head into all here, the get jobs definition, one of the things we would see here, not here, but when it's populated, is a mapping of that ID into the customer-facing field name. And so in order to overcome some client limitations with field names that FileMaker frankly doesn't have, right? You could put a lot more diverse characters in FileMaker field names than AI clients can accept. We're giving you this get jobs definition tool, which will help your client map the IDs to the user-facing names. I'll pause there for any questions or comments because I feel like that was kind of a lot. Now you guys are on it. Cool. If you have any questions, let's talk about it. Getting into a little bit of the weeds here, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Before I move forward from the definition updates, I want to call out something which I find kind of cool because I like JSON. I showed you updating this information via the UI, but we also accept updating the definition via JSON. And so here we take a standard JSON schema, in this case, the draft 7 of the JSON schema, which is a very common format. I know that a lot of folks like to use JSON within their scripts, and so we offer both at the UI level. You can define this information as JSON schema with descriptions and can express quite a lot more if you use JSON schema, if you look at the schema that's supported, or you can keep it simple and just use the form. It's really up to you and what you prefer. The next thing I want to do is talk about scripts and introduce some of the techniques that we just learned updating the tool, the scripts. And I would want to call out really quickly that doing this for scripts is extremely important and makes scripts extremely powerful. Because as we talked about earlier, scripts are the thing that allow us to express in a deterministic manner aspects of our database. To borrow the example that Bob asked about, let's say we wanted to do something with a very specific workflow, like assign two people in sequence and make sure that it is either done with success or fails, nothing in between. In FileMaker, of course, we would do that with a script, right? We'd write a script that would do that and do that in a very specific manner, and then either like maybe return an error if that didn't work or success if it did. And that is part of what makes scripts really powerful in FileMaker. But some of the power comes at the cost of what I'll call ambiguity with the AI client or the LLM. And that ambiguity comes in the form of the script description and then the script input schema. As we know, a script can accept either no parameters or a string-based parameter. And so when we pull this information when creating the MCP connection, the only thing we can go on is that we know that there will be a script parameter and we know that it'll be a string. And we know that it's not required, right? You can not give it and it'd be fine. But that doesn't really do our script justice. And it doesn't really allow us to deterministically ensure that when the AI client or the LLM take an action, that action is processed in our database in a predictable and safe manner. And so I want to really quickly go back to the FileMaker script here and just call out what my script is doing, and then we'll update the tool to ensure that that is the case. And so hopefully y'all can see the script. I generally try to, oh, my Zoom's working now. Okay, awesome. You'll notice here that one of the script steps that I have is setting a variable of required parameters. In this case, maybe these functions are a little bit older, but I'm a big fan of using custom functions in order to validate my script input schema before processing any work. And so I have a validation step here on 23 to set a variable of required parameters and then validate that the job ID and the technician ID are included in the script execution request. And then if for whatever reason it's not, I exit with a required parameters missing. If it does, I'm running this particular script as form script on server, going through, getting some layouts, going to a layout, forming a find, and then if there's no records, just scroll down a little bit. If there's no records, we will create it. If not, we will skip over it. And so in this case, the deterministic path is assign a particular technician to a particular job unless they're already assigned, right? That's the behavior that we're looking for here. And so with that in mind, we can head back on over to our UI, and I'll change these property names to be technician ID as a string, and I'll make it required. And I'll say the ID of the technician who should be assigned the job. And then I'll add another property of the job ID, and that will be the ID of the job to assign to the technician. I'm on the spot here, so that maybe that could be a little bit better. It seems a little recursive between the two, but hopefully y'all get my, there we go, get my meaning. We're adding the technician ID and a description, and then the job ID and a description for the LLM. So I'm going to save that. And then I'll go in and edit the details. And I'm going to update the description of the script to say assigns a technician to a job and will return an error if the job has already been assigned. Use this tool anytime a technician, user, asks for a technician to be assigned job. Okay. And so by giving it some of that descriptive information, where again, we're ensuring that when the user asks for a technician to be assigned to a job, the LLM knows that it should use this tool and it knows it should do it with the job ID and the technician ID. Now I'm going to save this. I'm going to move us back into testing, although technically now that you've moved into testing once, you don't have to do it again. I'm just going to do it just to be complete. And let's try this out in Claude Desktop. Head on back on over. Just going to go on here, and I'm going to force the tools to update just by restarting Claude. That isn't necessarily required, but I found it's helpful when making changes between development and testing. Restarting Claude just allows it to like relist the tools, and that ensures that the description updates. Again, not required. Most clients will do that automatically. Under the hood, there is a what I'll call a method used in order to list the tools. Some clients, in this case, Claude Desktop, need a little nudge in order to relist the tools and update that definition. Other clients do it very, very well. So just something I've noticed. I'm going to go here. In fact, let's go to the active jobs today because we had that already. And what I'll say is I'd like to assign Shay Lopez to do this one. Jason Powell's water heater installation. And so now we hope, and again, this is where the evaluations come in. This is how we determine that this is acting the way that we'd like. When I do this, it should see the script that I updated earlier, and then use that script to try to assign the job. And so now it sees it. It says, oh, the user is asking me to assign a technician to a job. I'm going to try to use the execute assign job script, which is the one that we updated. Now it knows that it should use that. And it's going to do so with the technician ID and the job ID, and then return back success. It's done. And so by doing that, by using the script and then defining the information around the script, we're ensuring that we still control how the AI client or LLM interact with our FileMaker database, but we allow it to interact in a way that's really valuable to the user, right? We do want users to be able to assign a technician to a job, but we want to control how that's done. And in this case, we've done that with a script and adding the definition for the script to the MCP context. That was a lot, so I'll just quickly pause again for any questions or comments. Okay, cool. It looks like I've got about 9 minutes left, and so we do have to make a little bit of a choice here. Would we prefer to look at another tool that allow us to see the tool definitions in a little bit more detail and maybe allow us to talk about some of the additional tools? Or do we want to try another client that might allow a different experience? Which would the group prefer? Maybe we'll do by hands. By hands, if you want to look more deeply at the MCP context. No hands if you want to look at the client, another client. And Bob, I'd ask for help just in looking. 1, 2, 3.
You've got 2 raised hands so far. 3.
3. Okay. I think I actually forgot. I believe we said that the.
You said if you wanted to look deeper into the MCP context, raise your hand. Otherwise, don't raise your hand. So
thank you. Okay.
So you got three people actively asking for that, and others who are, I guess, voting by silence.
Sometimes the most powerful kind of voting, right?
Take that how you want.
Okay. Well, in that case, let's look at another client. And then if I'm able to do it fast enough, maybe we have some time to look at the tool definitions. But I think just in the sake of showing the breadth of this, looking at another client maybe good. And so I'm going to do that. Let me pull up the other client I have available, and we'll get into a little bit of how you can work with other clients other than Claude. Okay. So I'm going to bring this on screen and just call out. In this particular case, I'm going to move us into a Python-based environment, and then we're going to specifically look at fast MCP or fast agent. which is an MCP client. This particular agent is much, much lower level. And so now we're moving away from a desktop and we're moving more into a CLI or background process. But I like to go this direction only because it allows me to interject some additional context, to borrow a term, on what you can do with this. And so this particular client takes a configuration similar to what we saw in Claude, just in a different way. And I actually need to do a little bit of cheating and pull back that configuration so that I have it. So let me grab it and move it into another window and do some replacement here. Let's see, we'll do the simple agent here. I'll give it the MCP URL and the context static token. Remember what we said earlier, the static token is the thing that connects the client to the FileMaker account. You want to keep these secure. They treat them like you would treat a password. I'm showing you these here just for the sake of the demonstration. I generally delete them when I'm done, but you would want to try to keep this static token here a secret, right? It gets added to the configuration, treat it like a password. And then I will save this and we'll go back into the agent.py and I'm going to give it, I actually already forgot the name. I'm going to give it the simple agent connection. And so what this code is going to do, and again, I know that we're stepping out of a UI for a moment, is it's going to use the Anthropic model that I have available with an instruction set that I've given it, and then the agent configuration that we just created in AI Workspace. So again, there's that configuration. And in this particular case, doing so allows me to interject some instruction to the client when it's doing its job. And so in this particular case, it's allowing me to add a query instruction. The reason why this is really valuable is because while models are trained on a lot of different type of information, and it certainly has some innate FileMaker knowledge, there's some uniqueness to the databases that you create that only you have. And so by shifting to a different type of client and then splitting out my MCP configuration and what I'll call the instruction, it allows me to tailor the experience a bit more for the work that I'm trying to do. In this particular case, the instruction provides references for the agent to work with some of the definitions that I have. And so here I can add things like aggregate patterns that I want, things like filter patterns that my teams rely on and that my FileMaker database expects, and then some more information on when and how to use the tools. Gives us another layer to add to the LLM in order to ensure that, again, it's acting and doing the things that we want. And so we're almost out of time. I just want to see if I can end this with a little bit of a demo. What I will do is lose the window that I wanted. Oh, yep, my window's not working. There we go. Okay. Clear. Head on over. Okay. I will invoke this by saying uv run agent.py. And it's going to give me a similar chat interface, but using that aggregation client that we created earlier. This is going to take a little bit longer. Maybe I have a little bit of an error, but it should recover. And by doing so, I'm able to do things much more efficiently, like aggregate data or go through and add unique value to my context. In this case, it might actually fail. Might be not a good way to end the demo. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to start. I will pause there for any questions or comments, though, on using other types of agents. Mark, I see your hand up. If you have a question, go for it. Nope. Okay. Let me see why this is erroring out. There we go. It worked that time. I don't know why it errored the first time. And so here I'll say, find me all the jobs in my database or in PeakWorks. Let's be even less specific and rank them by priority. So in this case, much like Sol was pointing out earlier, it's a much wider search that could potentially pull more information than needed. And so we hope the additional instructions that I give it is able to do the task much more effectively. And it failed. It's not a good example. But I would encourage you to experiment with other types of clients other than Claude Desktop, and maybe get started with Claude itself. So tried to go the additional way of adding another client in the mix. Maybe didn't necessarily get there, so not the best example, but hopefully you guys got a sense of the way that would work. Doing something like this, moving beyond Claude Desktop, gives you the ability to add instructions and then multiple servers to your agent and potentially work with multiple agents. Got about a minute left, so I'm happy to answer any questions or comments before we wrap up.
I have another question, Louis, in terms of clients. Can you, I mean, since MCP can be used in something like Cursor or in IDEs, can we connect Cursor to it? And then I'm assuming so, you're nodding your head. And then
Yes.
if that's the case, can we then use MCP on the development side? Say to ask, Claude, look at my schema and help me build this new feature. And, then it can create a new table for you with all the fields and all that stuff.
Yes. And actually, can I take more time than the hour, Bob? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Louis. Anybody who wants to stick around, we're at time, but I'll keep things running.
Awesome. Just because I would really love to dig into that, and I want to give you guys I want to end on the demo working, and so maybe we'll do that together. At least a couple of minutes would be great.
Sure.
To try to answer your question, yes, you can use any MCP compatible client that you'd like. The majority of them are supported. In this particular case, I just want to move into another set of instructions to try to answer your question. You can use things like Claude Desktop or the MCP inspector to create the client for yourself. And so I'm going to use that same connection. Let's go over to the MCP inspector and input that information. Just going to find the actual config again. Okay, here is my URL. And I will grab the static token. We're yet moving to another client. This client is called MCP Inspector. It's something that was built by Anthropic to allow you to just programmatically work with your MCP context. Well, give it a restart. Find the process that is controlling that. There we go. Let it restart. Cool. Okay. And so what I'll do here is list tools. And what I want to call out to try to answer the question that you had earlier, let me bring it back into editing mode, is that all of the tools that we used with the MCP UI, all of the connections, all of the refinement of the tools was actually is also available via something like Cursor or Claude Code. And so what that means is, if we bring this back into editing mode and disconnect and reconnect, clear list of tools, you'll see that we have things like add FileMaker connection or get connections or update context themes, pre-flight the FileMaker connection, update the connection. And so you can effectively use MCP and an AI client to create MCP via an AI client. And I did demo that before. I can try to get it demoed again. But essentially, if you connect to MCP in the editing stage, you can use a client to make those connections. And that allows you to do it much faster than you would do it via the UI. We defined the MCP tools in order to do that first, and then added the UI on top of it to make it easier for most people to use. But you can absolutely define MCP context using the tools with a client like Cursor or Claude Code. I believe in the first community live event we did, Michael did that, and I believe he did that very well. So I hope that answers your question. Let me know if you want to dig in deeper.
So you said that Michael did that in the community lab. Is that something that we can view as well?
Yes, I'm fairly sure it's recorded. If you look on the Claris Community Live page, I believe it's there as a recording. And again, just to give us a bit more of a closure for the demo, I'm going to try to do it live.
Cool.
Let me see. Just need to revert some things.
So I think the second part of my question while you're doing that is, once we connect with an IDE, like the big part of it for me is, can your AI then update your schema on the fly via OData or the MCP or whatever, however it's connected?
Can it update your schema? No, it cannot modify your MCP schema yet. We don't have tools to allow you to do that. The tools that we provide to your AI client in the editing mode or editing phase is only to update the MCP context, not the FileMaker database.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And I need to just borrow some information from my webpage. Oh, it's in the inspector. I need the URL, and then I'm going to need that token. Okay, it looks good. Open the terminal, and we'll give this another try. Doesn't work on this one, I'll have to call them all again and ask to come back in the future, but hopefully we'll get lucky. I just had to revert some changes that I made. Run agent.py. There we go. Okay, my agent is running. And now, Sol, to answer your question, I'll ask it to create a connection. So I'll say, create me a connection to my FileMaker server, scarif-fm.com, using the database of PeakWorks. Let's see if it's able to do it. Okay, so what happened, actually, it looks like there's an error with my MCP client, but it is able to actually pull the information and then try to execute the tool. Kind of curious what that error might be, so I might have to end it here. But the idea is that, yes, you can use the MCP client in order to create additional MCP contexts. Cool.
Very
Well,
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for spending additional time with me. I appreciate it. I'd love to come back at another time if you folks want to see more of this and dig in a little bit deeper. I promise at that time I'll prepare the additional clients a bit more. So we've got a fully working demo.
Louis, I get the impression that this tool is only in its infancy and that there's a lot more that's going to happen with it in the future. I'm sure that you can't speak too much to what's coming in the future, but we'd love to have you back to go deeper into what's already here, as well as whatever new comes down the pike. So thank you so much for this. It was really fascinating. It's a whole new frontier, I think, for FileMaker, and I think we're all looking forward to playing with this.
Thank you. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, it's a privilege to be able to present to you folks. Thank you very much, and I'd love to come back and do some more.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone. That wraps up today's FMDiSC meeting for February. Again, Saul Rodriguez is the meeting coordinator for next month's meeting, so contact him if you want to discuss content. And that meeting will be on March 13th of
Friday the
2026.
13th.
I'm sorry?
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th once again. So we have two Friday the 13th meetings in a row. We survived this one. Hopefully we will do so with the next one. Also, we'll have a recording up in a couple of days on our YouTube channel. So if you missed anything, please look for that. Thanks to all of our presenters. Really appreciate having you guys here. And
Great
we'll
stuff.
see you all next month.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, Bob.